This is the official audiobook of the book. To access the ebook version, the link will be in the first pinned comment just below. Click and access. Chapter 1: The Contemplative Hook and Promise of Transformation. I have watched the seasons turn 10,000 times, witnessed empires rise and fall like waves upon an ancient shore, and in all this endless flowing, I have learned one profound truth: transformation is not what most people think it is. You who are reading these words now, perhaps in the hurried space between obligations, perhaps in the quiet desperation of another sleepless night, you carry within yourself a question that has brought you here. It whispers in the spaces between your busy thoughts, tugs at your heart when you pause long enough to feel it. The question is simple, though its answer will revolutionize everything: how do I become who I truly am? Let me share with you the secret of the bamboo seed. In your world of instant gratification and measured progress, this ancient wisdom may surprise you. When a bamboo seed is planted, it appears to do nothing for years, sometimes 7 years or more. Above the earth, there is only stillness, patience, what your modern mind might call failure. Yet beneath the surface, invisible to impatient eyes, an intricate root system spreads wide and deep, drawing nutrients, establishing foundations, preparing for something magnificent. Then, in a matter of weeks, sometimes just days, the bamboo shoots toward the sky at an astonishing pace, growing up to 3 feet in a single day. What appears to be sudden growth is actually the culmination of years of hidden preparation. This is the nature of true transformation, dear friend. These 90 days we will spend together are not the beginning of your change, they are the spring season of a preparation that has been happening within you for years, perhaps lifetimes. The readiness is already there, planted deep in the soil of your being, waiting only for the right conditions to emerge into the light. I feel the skepticism that may arise in your mind, trained as it is by a world that promises quick fixes and dramatic before and after stories. But I invite you to sense something deeper: the way water, soft and yielding, gradually sculpts the hardest mountain into graceful valleys. There is no struggle in this process, no force, no violence. Only persistence, patience, and an unwavering commitment to flow. This is the power of the Tao, the way of natural unfolding that I offer you now. Not as another system to master or technique to perfect, but as a remembering of what you already know in your bones, your breath, the secret chambers of your heart. You have tried forcing change before, haven't you? The gym memberships abandoned, the diets that became battles, the self-improvement books that promised everything and delivered only more guilt when you couldn't maintain their rigid demands. What if I told you there was another way? What if transformation could feel like coming home rather than going to war? In my years of contemplating the mystery of existence, I have discovered that the most profound changes happen not through effort, but through what I call Wu Wei, action without forcing, moving in harmony with the natural flow of life rather than against it. This is not passivity or laziness, but something far more sophisticated: the art of aligning your personal energy with the deeper currents that already want to carry you toward your highest becoming. Imagine for a moment what your life might feel like if, instead of swimming upstream against the current of your days, you learned to recognize the river's natural direction and allowed it to carry you. Picture the relief in your shoulders when you stop bracing against everything that is, the deepness of breath when you cease the exhausting work of being someone you're not. This is what awaits you in these 3 sacred months ahead. Not another battle to be won or mountain to be conquered, but a gentle awakening to the transformation that is already stirring within you, like spring stirring within the heart of winter. The changes that will unfold in you during this time will be both subtle and revolutionary. You may find that conflicts which once consumed your energy begin to dissolve without your direct intervention. Relationships that felt stuck may suddenly flow with new ease. Work that once drained you might become a source of unexpected fulfillment. These shifts will not happen because you have forced them, but because you have remembered how to move in harmony with the deeper intelligence that guides all life. The ancient sages spoke of 3 treasures: compassion, simplicity, and humility. In our journey together, you will discover how these seemingly gentle qualities become the most potent agents of transformation in your modern world. Compassion, first toward yourself, then naturally extending to all you encounter. Simplicity, cutting through the complexity that keeps you separated from what truly matters. Humility, the profound relief of no longer needing to prove anything to anyone, including yourself. Your future self already exists, dear friend. Not as some distant goal to be achieved, but as a present reality waiting to be unveiled. Like a sculptor who sees the statue already complete within the marble, you need only remove what is not essentially you. The stress, the struggle, the endless doing that never seems to be enough, these are not your true nature. They are temporary clouds passing across the sky of your being. As we walk this path together, I will share with you practices that are both ancient and immediately practical, wisdom that has been tested not in laboratories but in the lived experience of countless souls who found their way from suffering to peace. You will learn to read the signs of your own energy like a farmer reads the sky, to make decisions from the quiet knowing that lives beneath your thinking mind, to find the extraordinary hidden within the ordinary moments of your days. The river of these 90 days stretches before us now, its waters reflecting both the sky above and the earth below, showing us that true transformation honors both our highest aspirations and our most human limitations. Step into these waters with me, and let us discover together how the gentlest current can carry us further than all our previous efforts combined. Moments for reflection. As you close this chapter, place your hand on your heart and feel its steady rhythm. What if your transformation could be as natural as this heartbeat, effortless, continuous, essential? What would you need to release to allow your own bamboo season to begin? Can you sense, even now, the roots of change already growing in the hidden depths of your being? Practice, tonight, before sleep, lie quietly and breathe naturally. With each exhale, silently release one thing you think you must force in your life. With each inhale, welcome the possibility that change can be as gentle as this breath flowing through you. Continue for 10 breaths, then rest in the spaciousness you have created. Who you are and what you're struggling with. I see you there, friend. You've found your way to these words not by accident, but because something deep within you recognizes that the path you've been walking, though perhaps successful by external measures, has left you feeling somehow hollow, disconnected from the very essence of what it means to be truly alive. You are what I have come to understand as the modern seeker, caught between worlds. On one hand, you navigate the demands of contemporary life with its relentless pace, its emphasis on doing rather than being, its promise that the next achievement, the next relationship, the next purchase will finally bring the peace you seek. On the other hand, there's this quiet voice inside you, perhaps growing louder lately, that whispers of something more, something that can't be bought or earned or forced into existence. Let me paint a picture of who you might be, not to box you in, but to help you feel seen and understood in this moment. You are the executive who has climbed every ladder, achieved every goal you set for yourself, yet find yourself staring out your office window wondering, is this all there is? You are the parent who loves deeply but feels constantly frazzled, always rushing from one obligation to the next, longing for just a moment of genuine stillness. You are the creative soul who has perhaps lost touch with the pure joy of creation, now measuring your worth by likes, shares, and market success rather than the simple pleasure of bringing something beautiful into the world. The warrior who has forgotten how to rest. Many of you have become what I call the tired warrior. You've spent so many years fighting for recognition, fighting against injustice, fighting to make ends meet, fighting to be heard, fighting to prove your worth, that you've forgotten there's another way to move through life. The muscles of resistance have become so developed that they now fire automatically, even when no threat is present. I understand this pattern intimately. In my own journey through countless lifetimes of observation, I've watched how the human spirit, so naturally inclined toward flow and harmony, becomes hardened by repeated encounters with opposition. What begins as necessary protection becomes a prison of perpetual defensiveness. You wake up already braced for battle, checking your phone before your feet touch the ground, immediately plugging into the stream of urgency that our world mistakes for importance. Your nervous system lives in a state of chronic activation, always ready for the next crisis, the next deadline, the next person who might challenge your carefully constructed sense of control. But here's what I want you to understand, this vigilant, fighting stance that once served you has become the very thing that separates you from the peace and effectiveness you truly seek. The Tao teaches us that water, in its gentle persistence, carves through the hardest stone not through force, but through continuous, soft contact. Yet you've been trying to be the hammer when your nature is to be the stream. The mind that has lost its way home to silence. Your mind, beautiful and capable as it is, has become like a radio stuck between stations, constantly buzzing with static, picking up fragments of 1,000 different broadcasts but never quite tuning into the clear, pure signal of your own inner wisdom. This is not your fault. The culture you inhabit has trained minds to be consumers of information rather than cultivators of wisdom, to be reactors to external stimuli rather than senders of calm awareness. You know this feeling, don't you? That sense of your thoughts racing from morning until night, jumping from worry to planning to regret to anticipation in an endless loop. You've tried meditation apps, maybe attended a workshop or two, but even in those moments designated for peace, your mind feels like a restless child, unable to settle into the natural stillness that is your birthright. The tragedy is not that you have a busy mind, thoughts arise naturally, like waves on the ocean. The tragedy is that you've forgotten you are not the waves. You are the vast, deep ocean itself, temporarily fascinated by the movement on your surface. In quiet moments, when you're washing dishes or walking in nature, you sometimes catch glimpses of this deeper identity, but then the phone rings or a deadline looms, and you're pulled back into the turbulence. This hyperactivity of mind has consequences that ripple through every aspect of your life. Relationships suffer because you're not fully present, always partially occupied with the mental commentary running in the background. Decision-making becomes exhausting because you've lost touch with the intuitive knowing that would guide you surely and swiftly. Even simple pleasures, a meal, a conversation, a beautiful sunset, are filtered through the analyzing, comparing, judging lens of overstimulation. The hollow crown of external success. Perhaps most painfully, some of you have achieved what society told you would bring happiness, only to discover that external accomplishments, while satisfying on one level, cannot fill the soul-shaped hollow within. You have the house, the career, the recognition, maybe even the family you dreamed of, yet something fundamental feels missing. This isn't ingratitude or weakness, it's wisdom trying to break through. Your soul is attempting to tell you that true fulfillment flows from alignment with your essential nature, not from accumulating experiences or achievements. The Tao Te Ching speaks of this when it says, "In pursuit of knowledge, every day something is added. In pursuit of wisdom, every day something is dropped." You've been adding and adding skills, possessions, responsibilities, identities, hoping that eventually you'll have enough to feel complete. But completion doesn't come from addition, it comes from recognition of what was already whole within you from the beginning. The empty feeling isn't a sign that something is wrong with you, it's your inner compass pointing you toward what is real and lasting. I've seen successful people sit in their beautiful homes, surrounded by evidence of their achievements, feeling like strangers in their own lives. The person who worked so hard to create this life seems different from the person living it now. There's a disconnect between who you had to become to achieve these things and who you truly are beneath all the roles and accomplishments. The mirror of broken relationships. Your relationships, with partners, children, friends, colleagues, have become mirrors reflecting back your internal state of disharmony. When we're disconnected from our own center, every interaction becomes slightly off-key, like an orchestra where the instruments aren't quite tuned to each other. You find yourself in repetitive conflicts, the same arguments playing out with different people. You notice patterns where you're either giving too much of yourself, trying to control outcomes, or withdrawing behind walls of protection. The natural flow of giving and receiving that characterizes healthy relationships feels forced or entirely absent. Perhaps you've become the person who says yes to everything while inwardly screaming, depleted by constantly overriding your own needs to please others. Or maybe you've swung the other direction, becoming so guarded that intimacy feels dangerous, always maintaining enough distance to ensure you won't be truly seen or potentially hurt. The quality of presence that allows relationships to flourish, that warm, open awareness that makes others feel truly received, has been crowded out by the mental noise and emotional reactivity that have become your default state. You love deeply, but you struggle to love clearly, without the distortions of projection, expectation, and unconscious patterns inherited from your past. The body's rebellion against modern life. Your physical form, wise teacher that it is, has likely been sending you increasingly urgent messages that something needs to change. Perhaps it's chronic fatigue that no amount of caffeine can touch, persistent anxiety that creates a knot in your chest, or unexplained aches and pains that doctors can't quite diagnose. Maybe you've developed what we euphemistically call stress-related conditions, as if stress were some inevitable natural disaster rather than a response to living out of alignment with your true nature. Your body remembers what your mind has forgotten: how to rest deeply, how to move with natural grace, how to breathe fully without thinking about it. But years of pushing through, ignoring signals, and treating your physical form as a machine that should perform on demand have created a rebellion of symptoms. These aren't failures of your body, they're love letters written in the language of sensation, trying to guide you back to balance. Your insomnia is your nervous system begging for the deep peace that comes from inner harmony. Your digestive issues reflect the difficulty of processing not just food, but the emotional and mental content of modern life. Your tension headaches map the places where you're trying to hold up a version of reality through sheer will rather than allowing life to flow through you naturally. The call of your authentic self. Beneath all these struggles lies something beautiful and indestructible: your authentic self, patiently waiting like a spring beneath the earth, ready to nourish everything in your life the moment you remove the stones that block its flow. This essential you isn't damaged by your struggles or diminished by your mistakes. It hasn't been corrupted by the compromises you've made or the roles you've played. Like the Tao itself, it simply is, eternal and perfect, requiring nothing but recognition to begin transforming every aspect of your experience. You've felt glimpses of this true self in moments of unexpected joy, in times when you've acted from pure love rather than obligation, in instances when words flowed through you that seemed to come from a wisdom deeper than your personal knowledge. These aren't anomalies, they're previews of what becomes available when you align with your natural way of being. The tiredness you feel isn't just physical exhaustion, it's soul weariness from trying to be someone you're not. The relationships that drain you wouldn't drain the authentic you, who gives from overflow rather than deficit. The success that feels hollow would feel meaningful if it emerged from genuine expression rather than external expectations. Your authentic self knows how to work without strain, love without attachment, achieve without grasping. It understands that true power comes not from forcing outcomes but from such perfect alignment with the natural flow of life that obstacles dissolve and opportunities appear as if by magic. Take a moment now to feel into this truth: everything you've been seeking externally already exists within you. The peace you want, the clarity you need, the love you crave, the purpose you seek, all of this is your natural state, temporarily obscured by patterns and beliefs that can be gently released. Notice how your body responds to this possibility. Can you sense, even faintly, that relief that comes from being truly seen and understood? That's your authentic self recognizing itself in these words, remembering what it never really forgot. Moment for reflection: what would change in your life if you truly trusted that peace and fulfillment were your natural state, temporarily covered over rather than something you need to create or earn? Moment for reflection: when do you feel most like yourself, most natural and unguarded? What conditions allow this authentic self to emerge? Moment for reflection: if you could send a message of compassion to the part of you that has been struggling and fighting so hard, what would you want that tired warrior within to know? Practice. For the next 3 days, before getting out of bed each morning, place your hand on your heart and spend 60 seconds simply appreciating yourself for making it through whatever challenges yesterday brought. Don't try to change anything or set intentions for the day, just offer yourself the same kindness you would give to a dear friend who had been through everything you've experienced. Notice how this simple acknowledgement affects the quality of your day and your capacity to respond to life's demands with more grace and less resistance. In recognizing yourself in these words, you've already taken the first step on the path home to your true nature. The Tao that you've been seeking in techniques and philosophies has been breathing you all along, waiting patiently for your return to the simplicity and wisdom that is your birthright. Foundations. I invite you to imagine, for a moment, that you are standing beside a mountain stream at dawn. The water moves with such naturalness that it never questions its path, it simply flows around rocks, through valleys, always finding the way of least resistance while carving, over time, the most profound transformations in the landscape. This is your first glimpse into the living essence of what we call the Tao. In my years of observing both the natural world and the human heart, I have come to understand that most suffering arises from a single source: our forgetting that we, too, are part of this same natural flow. We have been taught to swim upstream, to fight the current, to prove our worth through struggle. But what if I told you that your deepest power lies not in resistance, but in remembering how to move like water. The word Tao has been translated many ways: the way, the path, the source, but perhaps the most accurate translation would be the natural flow of existence itself. It is not a distant concept to be studied, but the very force that moves your breath, beats your heart, and draws the seasons through their eternal dance. When you cut your finger, something heals it without your conscious effort. When you fall asleep, something dreams your dreams. This something is not separate from you, it is the deepest expression of who you are. The Tao is source, recognizing what you've always known. I have watched countless students approach the Tao as if it were a foreign language they must learn, when in truth, it is their native tongue. Every child knows the Tao instinctively. Watch a toddler learning to walk: they fall, they rise, they fall again without judgment or story about failure. They are pure flow, pure becoming. Somewhere along the way, we learn to complicate this natural wisdom. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao, I wrote long ago, and I meant this not as mystical riddle but as practical guidance. The moment we try to capture the flow of life in rigid concepts, we lose its essence. Yet this does not mean we cannot work with it, dance with it, align ourselves with its currents. Think of the Tao as the invisible conductor of a cosmic orchestra. You are not separate from this music, you are one of the instruments. When you fight against the rhythm, you create discord not just in your own life, but in the harmony of the whole. When you learn to listen for the deeper rhythm and play your unique part within it, magic happens. Your life begins to flow with an effortless grace that surprises even you. In practical terms, this means beginning to notice the difference between actions that arise from forcing and actions that arise from following. When you force, there is tension in your body, resistance in your environment, exhaustion afterward. When you follow the natural current, there is ease, synchronicity, a sense of being carried by something larger than your individual will. Take a moment now to recall a time when everything seemed to flow effortlessly in your life. Perhaps it was falling in love, creating something beautiful, or finding the perfect solution to a problem without trying. That state of flow was not accidental, it was you, temporarily aligned with the Tao. The next 90 days are about making this alignment not occasional, but natural. Yin and Yang, the dance of opposites in your daily life. If the Tao is the eternal dance, then Yin and Yang are its fundamental rhythm. These are not opposing forces but complementary aspects of the same wholeness, like the in-breath and out-breath that sustain your life. Understanding this rhythm is essential for anyone seeking to live in harmony rather than constant struggle. In our modern world, we have become dangerously yang-dominant. We glorify action over rest, speaking over listening, accumulation over release. We have forgotten that every expansion must be balanced by contraction, every effort by ease, every gathering by letting go. This imbalance manifests as the epidemic of burnout, anxiety, and spiritual emptiness that characterizes our time. Yin is the quiet power of receptivity, the fertile darkness of rest, the wisdom of knowing when not to act. It is the pause between heartbeats, the silence between notes that makes music possible, the fallow season that allows the soil to regenerate. Without Yin, Yang becomes aggressive, destructive, ultimately unsustainable. Yang is the bright energy of manifestation, the courage to step forward, the fire that transforms dreams into reality. It is the sunlight that awakens seeds, the passion that fuels creativity, the strength that overcomes obstacles. Without Yang, Yin becomes stagnant, passive, ultimately lifeless. The art lies in recognizing which energy is needed in each moment and having the flexibility to embody it fully. There are times when your life calls for the focused intensity of Yang, launching a project, having a difficult conversation, pushing through resistance. There are times when it calls for the receptive wisdom of Yin, listening deeply, resting completely, allowing situations to unfold without interference. I have noticed that most people have a habitual preference for one over the other, often based on early conditioning or cultural expectations. Some are natural Yin types who have learned to force themselves into Yang mode to survive in a Yang-dominated world. Others are natural Yang types who have never learned to access the replenishing power of Yin. Both patterns lead to exhaustion and imbalance. The practice is to begin noticing these rhythms everywhere in your life. Your energy naturally ebbs and flows throughout the day, Can you honor these rhythms instead of fighting them? Your relationships move through seasons of closeness and space. Can you allow this natural breathing without panic or pursuit? Your creative work has phases of inspiration and integration. Can you trust both equally? When you begin to live in conscious relationship with yin and yang, something remarkable happens. You discover that you can accomplish more by working with your natural rhythms than you ever could by forcing against them. You find that rest becomes truly restorative when you embrace it fully, rather than feeling guilty about not being productive. You discover that action becomes more effective when it arises from a foundation of inner stillness. Wu Wei, the revolution of effortless action. Of all the Taoist principles, Wu Wei is perhaps the most misunderstood, yet it holds the key to the transformation you seek. Wu Wei is often translated as non-action, which immediately conjures images of passivity or laziness in Western minds. But Wu Wei is neither passive nor lazy. It is the most skillful action possible, action that arises from such perfect timing and alignment that it appears effortless. Imagine a master archer. Through years of practice, the archer has so completely integrated the skills of archery that in the moment of shooting, there is no sense of effort or strain. The archer, bow, arrow, and target become one unified movement. This is Wu Wei, action so perfectly aligned with natural law that it flows like water, strikes like lightning, and achieves its purpose with minimum expenditure of energy. In your daily life, Wu Wei might look like knowing exactly what to say in a difficult conversation without having planned it, finding the perfect solution to a problem while taking a shower, or having opportunities appear just when you need them because you are open and available rather than forcing outcomes through willpower alone. The practice of Wu Wei begins with learning to distinguish between necessary action and unnecessary interference. So much of what we call action is actually just nervous energy, the result of our discomfort with uncertainty or our addiction to feeling in control. We send emails that don't need to be sent, have conversations that could wait, make decisions before all the information is available. This is not action, this is anxiety masquerading as productivity. True Wu Wei requires what I call dynamic patience, the ability to remain alert and ready while allowing situations to ripen naturally. It means developing such sensitivity to the subtle currents of any situation that you can feel when the moment for action has arrived. Like a surfer waiting for the perfect wave, you learn to sense the optimal timing for your engagement. This does not mean becoming passive or indecisive. Wu Wei can be swift and decisive when the moment calls for it. But it is decisiveness based on inner knowing rather than outer pressure, action that flows from clarity rather than compulsion. One of my students once asked me how to know when to act and when to wait. I told her to pay attention to the quality of energy in her body when she contemplated different options. Forced action feels tight, anxious, effortful, like swimming upstream. Natural action feels spacious, alive, almost inevitable, like water finding its course downhill. Over the next 90 days, I invite you to experiment with Wu Wei in small ways. Before responding to an email, pause and sense whether a response is truly needed right now. Before offering advice to a friend, pause and sense whether they are actually asking for solutions or simply need to be heard. Before pushing harder on a project that feels stuck, pause and sense whether a different approach might be more effective. As you begin to experience the power of Wu Wei, you will discover something extraordinary. Life begins to support your efforts in ways that feel almost magical. Synchronicities increase, obstacles dissolve, resources appear. This is not because you have become passive, but because you have learned to work with the grain of existence rather than against it. Te, discovering your natural power. Te is the power that flows from virtue, but not virtue in the moralistic sense we often imagine. Te is the power of being authentically yourself, nothing more, nothing less. It is the gravitational field that naturally forms around someone who has stopped trying to be anyone other than who they are. You have experienced Te in others, even if you didn't have a name for it. Think of someone in your life who has this quality, perhaps a teacher, grandparent, or friend, who seems to affect others simply by being themselves. They don't demand attention, yet people are drawn to them. They don't try to convince or control, yet others naturally seek their counsel. They embody a kind of quiet authority that has nothing to do with position or credentials and everything to do with authentic presence. This is not charisma in the flashy sense, but something deeper and more sustainable. It is the power that emerges when someone has stopped the exhausting work of maintaining a false self and learned to rest in their essential nature. It is magnetic because it is real, and we are all starving for reality in a world of carefully curated personas and performance. The cultivation of TE begins with the courage to stop performing and start being. This is more challenging than it sounds because most of us have been performing for so long that we have forgotten who we are beneath the act. We have learned to be who we think others want us to be, who we think we should be, who we think will keep us safe and loved. But this performance is exhausting, and it never quite works because it's not authentic. I remember a businessman who came to me burned out from years of playing the role of the aggressive, always confident leader his company seemed to reward. Beneath this performance was a naturally contemplative man who led best through listening and wisdom rather than dominance and control. When he began to let his authentic style emerge, he feared he would lose respect. Instead, his team began to trust him more deeply, and his company's culture transformed in ways that improved both morale and profits. The path to TE requires what I call radical self-acceptance, the willingness to embrace all aspects of yourself, including the parts you have been taught to hide or improve. This doesn't mean being indulgent with your shortcomings, but rather working with your natural grain instead of against it. Your strengths and your limitations are both part of your unique gift to the world. The person who learns to speak beautifully might never develop the gift of listening deeply. The natural introvert who forces themselves to be outgoing misses the opportunity to develop their gift for intimate, one-on-one connection. The gentle soul who tries to be more aggressive abandons their natural power of persuasion through kindness. As you begin to align with your authentic nature, you may notice that some relationships become strained while others deepen. This is natural. People who are attracted to your performance may not resonate with your authenticity, while others who could never quite connect with your persona will recognize and respond to your genuine presence. Trust this process. The relationships that form around your authentic self will be far more nourishing and sustainable. The practice of cultivating TE involves daily acts of authenticity, small moments of choosing truth over appearance, being over seeming. When someone asks how you are, can you give a real answer instead of an automatic fine? When faced with a choice between what looks good and what feels right, can you choose what feels right? When your natural pace conflicts with external pressure, can you honor your rhythm? TE is not developed overnight but cultivated patiently, like a garden. Each moment of authentic choice, each small act of self-honesty, each decision to be real rather than impressive adds to this inner reservoir of natural power. Over time, you will find that you accomplish more by being yourself than you ever could by trying to be someone else. Xiren, the art of spontaneous naturalness. Xiren is perhaps the most beautiful of all Taoist concepts, spontaneous naturalness, the ability to respond to life from your essential nature without the filter of learned behaviors or defensive patterns. It is the difference between a scripted performance and an improvised dance, between a memorized speech and words that arise fresh from the heart. Watch young children at play, and you will see Xiren in action. They respond to each moment fully, without carrying the weight of the previous moment or anticipating the next. They laugh when something delights them, cry when something hurts, approach new situations with curiosity rather than predetermined judgments. This is not immaturity, it is wisdom we have forgotten. As adults, we develop layers of conditioning that filter our natural responses. We learn what is appropriate and inappropriate, safe and dangerous, acceptable and unacceptable. Much of this learning is necessary for functioning in society, but we often go too far, creating such thick layers of conditioning that our natural responses are buried beneath learned patterns. The cultivation of Xiren is not about returning to childish impulsiveness, but about recovering childlike freshness. It means developing the inner freedom to respond from your wisdom rather than your wounds, from your creativity rather than your conditioning, from your love rather than your fears. This requires what I call beginner's mind, the ability to meet each situation as if for the first time, without the weight of past experience determining your response. This doesn't mean ignoring the wisdom you've gained through experience, but holding it lightly enough that it informs rather than controls your responses. I have noticed that spontaneous naturalness emerges when we are fully present rather than lost in thoughts about the past or future. In the space of pure presence, our responses arise from a deeper intelligence than the calculating mind. We say exactly what needs to be said, do exactly what needs to be done, respond with precisely the energy that the moment requires. The obstacles to Ziran are usually fear-based: fear of making mistakes, fear of judgment, fear of being inappropriate or saying the wrong thing. These fears cause us to second-guess our natural impulses, to edit our responses through filters of anxiety, to choose safety over authenticity. The practice of Ziran begins with small experiments in trusting your immediate responses. When someone asks you a question, notice your first impulse before your mind starts calculating the right answer. When you enter a room, notice where your body naturally wants to go before social conditioning takes over. When faced with a creative choice, notice what attracts you before your analytical mind starts evaluating options. This is not about acting on every impulse. Some impulses arise from unconscious patterns rather than natural wisdom. The practice is learning to distinguish between responses that arise from presence and clarity versus those that arise from reactivity and conditioning. Natural responses feel spacious and alive, even when they are strong. Reactive responses feel tight and driven, even when they appear calm. As you begin to trust and express your natural responses, you may be surprised by what emerges. Many people discover that their authentic voice is wiser, kinder, and more creative than they imagined. Others find that their natural energy is more gentle or more fierce than they had allowed themselves to be. The flowering of Ziran creates a particular kind of joy, the joy of being fully yourself in each moment. It is the opposite of the exhaustion that comes from constantly monitoring and controlling your responses. When you respond naturally, there is a sense of rightness, of alignment, of coming home to yourself again and again. The 5 elements as ways of being. In Taoist understanding, the 5 elements, wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, are not just physical substances but fundamental energies that flow through all of life, including our inner landscape. Learning to recognize and work with these elemental energies gives us a practical map for navigating different situations and seasons of our lives. Wood energy is the rising force of spring, the power of growth and expansion. It carries the qualities of flexibility, vision, and determination. When wood energy is balanced, we feel creative, optimistic, and capable of growth. When it's excessive, we become rigid, frustrated, or overly aggressive. When deficient, we lack direction, feel stuck, or give up easily. In daily life, wood energy serves us when we're starting new projects, setting boundaries, or need the courage to grow beyond our comfort zones. Cultivating healthy wood energy involves balancing determination with flexibility, like bamboo that bends in strong wind but returns to vertical when the storm passes. Fire energy embodies the peak of summer, the power of connection and joy. It carries the qualities of warmth, communication, and celebration. Balanced fire energy manifests as authentic enthusiasm, the ability to connect deeply with others, and a natural radiance that uplifts those around us. Excessive fire can manifest as agitation, scattered energy, or overwhelming intensity. Deficient fire shows up as depression, isolation, or inability to experience joy. Fire energy serves us in social situations, creative expression, and times when we need to inspire others or ourselves. Cultivating healthy fire means learning to shine without burning out, to connect without losing ourselves, to be enthusiastic without becoming manic. Earth energy represents late summer, the power of nourishment and stability. It carries the qualities of groundedness, nurturing, and practical wisdom. When earth energy flows well, we feel centered, supportive of others, and capable of turning ideas into reality. When excessive, it can manifest as worry, overgiving, or getting stuck in details. When deficient, we feel ungrounded, unable to nourish ourselves or others, scattered. Earth energy serves us when we need to provide support, solve practical problems, or create stability in times of change. Cultivating earth energy involves learning to give and receive nourishment in balanced ways, to be supportive without being controlling. Metal energy embodies autumn, the power of refinement and release. It carries the qualities of clarity, precision, and the ability to let go of what no longer serves. Balanced metal energy manifests as clear thinking, appropriate boundaries, and the wisdom to know what to keep and what to release. Excessive metal can become rigid perfectionism, harsh judgment, or inability to accept imperfection. Deficient metal shows up as inability to set boundaries, holding on to what needs to be released, or lack of discrimination. Metal energy serves us when we need to make difficult decisions, organize chaos, or go through transitions that require letting go. Cultivating metal energy means learning to be precise without being harsh, to discriminate without being judgmental. Water energy represents winter, the power of stillness and deep wisdom. It carries the qualities of flow, persistence, and connection to the mysteries of life. When water energy is balanced, we feel calm, wise, and capable of flowing around obstacles while maintaining our essential direction. Excessive water can manifest as fear, withdrawal, or lack of structure. Deficient water appears as restlessness, inability to go deep, or burning out our reserves. Water energy serves us when we need to rest and restore, when we're facing major obstacles, or when we need to access our deepest wisdom. Cultivating water energy involves learning to be still without being stagnant, to flow without losing our center. The practice is to begin noticing which elemental energies are naturally strong in you and which need cultivation. Most people have a natural affinity for one or two elements and find others more challenging to access. Complete balance is not the goal, your unique combination of elemental strengths is part of your gift. The goal is conscious relationship with all the energies so you can access what each situation requires. As you move through your day, you might notice that meetings require different elemental approaches than creative work, that some relationships call for more fire while others need more water, that different seasons of your life require different elemental emphasis. This awareness allows you to work with your energy rather than against it, to respond to life's varied demands with appropriate power. Cultivating Qi, your living energy. Qi is the life force that animates all existence, the vital energy that flows through your body, your relationships, your environment. It is not mystical but utterly practical, as real as your breath, as tangible as the difference between feeling energized and feeling depleted. Learning to sense, cultivate, and direct your Qi is fundamental to living in harmony with the Tao. You already know Qi intimately, though you may not have called it by that name. It's the energy you feel when you're truly excited about something, the depletion you experience after spending time with energy vampires, the renewal that comes from being in nature, the vitality that flows when you're doing work you love. Qi is not separate from your physical, emotional, and mental states, it underlies and connects them all. The quality of your Qi affects everything in your life. When your Qi is strong and flowing, you feel vital, clear, connected. Challenges become workable, relationships flow more smoothly, creativity flourishes. When your Qi is weak or blocked, everything becomes more difficult. Small problems feel overwhelming, misunderstandings multiply, inspiration disappears. The good news is that Qi responds to conscious cultivation. Unlike many aspects of health and well-being that seem beyond our direct control, Qi can be strengthened, refined, and directed through simple practices that integrate naturally into daily life. The foundation of Qi cultivation is breath awareness. Your breath is the most direct bridge between conscious and unconscious, voluntary and involuntary, mind and body. When you breathe consciously, you immediately begin to influence the quality and flow of your Qi. But not all breathing practices are created equal. The goal is not to control your breath but to enhance its natural rhythm and depth. Forced breathing creates tension, natural breathing creates flow. The practice is to breathe as if you have all the time in the world, allowing each inhale to arise organically and each exhale to release completely. As you develop sensitivity to your Qi, you'll begin to notice how different activities, environments, and relationships affect your energy. Some foods energize you while others deplete you. Some environments feel nourishing while others feel draining. Some people naturally enhance your vitality while others leave you feeling exhausted. This is not about judgment but about conscious choice. When you understand how different factors influence your Qi, you can make decisions that support your vitality rather than drain it. This might mean adjusting your diet, changing your environment, or setting different boundaries in relationships. The cultivation of Qi also involves learning to sense the energy of situations before reacting to them. Every interaction, every environment, every moment has its own energetic signature. When you develop sensitivity to these subtle currents, you can respond more skillfully, knowing when to engage and when to withdraw, when to speak and when to listen, when to act and when to wait. Physical movement is another powerful way to cultivate qi. Not the punishing exercise our culture often prescribes, but movement that feels like play, like dance, like celebration of having a body. Walking in nature, gentle stretching, dancing to music you love, any movement that brings you pleasure while keeping energy flowing through your body. Perhaps most importantly, qi cultivation involves releasing what blocks its natural flow. Held emotions, chronic tension, negative thought patterns, and unresolved conflicts all create energetic stagnation. As you learn to feel and release these blockages with compassion, your natural vitality returns. The practice of qi cultivation is ultimately the practice of aligning with life itself. When your personal energy is in harmony with the larger energy of existence, you feel supported by life rather than in struggle with it. Problems still arise, but they no longer drain your essential vitality. Challenges become opportunities to strengthen and refine your qi rather than deplete it. Over the next 90 days, I invite you to develop an intimate relationship with your qi. Notice what enhances it and what depletes it. Practice breathing as if your breath were precious. Move your body with love rather than discipline. Release what no longer serves with gratitude for what it taught you. As your qi grows stronger and more refined, you'll find that transformation happens more naturally. Instead of forcing change through willpower, you'll attract the circumstances and opportunities that support your evolution. This is the power of aligned energy. It magnetizes what belongs in your life and naturally releases what doesn't. Let me offer you some reflections for contemplation. Can you remember a time when your energy felt perfectly aligned? When were you, and what were you doing? What activities, relationships, or environments consistently enhance your vitality versus those that drain it? How might your life change if you made decisions based primarily on what truly nourishes your qi? And here is a simple practice to begin with. For the next week, before making any significant decision, what to eat, how to spend your evening, how to respond to a request, pause and sense the quality of energy in your body when you imagine different options. Choose the option that feels most alive, most nourishing to your qi. Notice what happens when you prioritize your energy this way. The path of transformation through the Tao is not about learning complex philosophies or adopting foreign practices. It is about returning to the natural wisdom you were born with, the wisdom that knows how to live in harmony with the rhythms of existence. These foundations we have explored, the Tao as living source, the dance of yin and yang, the power of Wu Wei, the cultivation of authentic presence, the wisdom of the elements, and the art of working with life energy. These are not foreign concepts but forgotten memories, not new skills but recovered capacities. As we prepare to move deeper into practical application, remember that transformation happens not through dramatic gestures but through small, consistent choices to align with your deeper nature. The seed of the person you are becoming already exists within you. These foundations are simply ways of providing the conditions for that seed to naturally unfold. In our next exploration, we will discover how these timeless principles come alive in the practical challenges of modern life, in your work, relationships, health, and daily decisions. For now, rest in the knowing that you already have everything you need for the transformation you seek. It is not somewhere outside you waiting to be found, but something inside you waiting to be remembered. Key principles applied to daily life. The morning mist clings to my garden as I write these words, watching how the dew settles naturally on each blade of grass without effort or force. There is something profoundly beautiful about witnessing nature's effortless perfection, the way water finds its level, the way plants turn toward light, the way the earth breathes with the seasons. These same principles that govern the natural world are not separate from your daily existence, they are the very foundation upon which a transformed life can unfold. When I speak of applying Tao to daily life, I do not mean adding another layer of complexity to your already full days. Instead, I invite you to discover how the ancient wisdom that flows through rivers and grows forests can simplify and illuminate the most ordinary moments of your existence. The checkout line at the grocery store becomes a place to practice patience. The difficult conversation with your colleague transforms into an opportunity for Wu Wei. The monthly budget review reveals itself as a meditation on the natural flow of energy and resources. You see, the Tao does not live only in mountain temples or meditation halls. It pulses through your morning coffee, breathes in your afternoon meetings, and whispers in the quiet moments before sleep. The art lies not in compartmentalizing your spiritual practice from your practical life, but in recognizing that they were never separate to begin with. Work is spiritual cultivation. I have observed countless souls who speak of their work as something they must endure until they can return to their real life. But what if I told you that your workplace, whether it be a bustling office, a quiet home studio, or the road between appointments, is actually a perfectly designed spiritual gymnasium? Every challenge, every deadline, every difficult personality you encounter there is not an obstacle to your growth, but the very means by which that growth occurs. The Tao teaches us that resistance creates suffering. When you approach your work tasks from a place of inner alignment rather than external pressure, something remarkable shifts. The project that once felt impossible begins to unfold naturally. The client who triggered your frustration becomes a teacher of patience. The deadline that created anxiety transforms into a rhythm that carries you forward. I remember speaking with a friend who managed a small team of accountants. For years, she approached her role like a general commanding troops, pushing and directing every detail. Her days were filled with stress, her evenings with exhaustion, and her weekends with dread for Monday's return. When she began to understand work as cultivation, everything changed. She learned to listen before speaking, to guide rather than control, to trust her team's natural abilities rather than micromanage their every move. It was as if I had been swimming upstream for years, she told me, and suddenly discovered I could turn around and let the current carry me. The work not only became easier, it became better. My team felt more valued, our results improved, and I came home energized rather than depleted. This is Wu Wei in action. Not passive waiting, but active alignment. Not abandoning responsibility, but fulfilling it from a deeper source. When you stop fighting your work and start flowing with it, you discover that effectiveness and serenity are not opposites, they are dance partners. As you move through your work tasks today, I invite you to pause occasionally and notice, where am I forcing? Where am I flowing? What would it feel like to approach this challenge like water encountering a stone, not by pushing against it, but by finding the natural path around or through it? The most practical spirituality is often the most invisible. Your colleagues may not notice that you've begun treating your workspace as sacred ground, but they will feel the change in energy you bring to meetings. They may not understand why conflicts seem to resolve more easily around you, but they will be drawn to the centered presence you've cultivated through years of small, daily practices. Relationships through the lens of the Tao. If work is our spiritual gymnasium, then our relationships are our advanced graduate course in the wisdom of the Tao. Every person who enters your orbit, from your intimate partner to the stranger who cuts you off in traffic, arrives as both teacher and student in the dance of human connection. The ancient principle of yin and yang finds perhaps its most vivid expression in how we relate to others. In healthy relationships, there is a natural rhythm of speaking and listening, of leading and following, of giving space and coming close. Problems arise not because this dance is inherently flawed, but because we forget we are dancing at all. We try to lead when the moment calls for following. We withdraw when presence is needed. We push when the situation requires patience. I think of my neighbor, Sarah, who spent years locked in conflict with her teenage daughter. Every conversation became a battle of wills, each interaction leaving both of them wounded and exhausted. The harder Sarah tried to control her daughter's choices, the more rebellious the girl became. It was a perfect demonstration of how force creates counterforce, how resistance breeds more resistance. When Sarah began to understand the principle of Wu Wei in parenting, she made a radical shift. Instead of meeting her daughter's anger with more anger, she learned to respond with curious neutrality. Instead of imposing solutions, she began asking questions that helped her daughter discover her own wisdom. Instead of trying to shield her child from every mistake, she created space for natural learning to occur. I stopped being her opponent and became her ally, Sarah reflected months later. Not permissive, I still maintained boundaries. But I learned to hold those boundaries like bamboo instead of like concrete. strong enough to provide structure, flexible enough not to break when tested. This is the profound gift of applying Tao principles to our closest relationships. We discover that love is not about controlling or being controlled, but about creating space for each person to unfold according to their deepest nature. We learn that conflict is not the enemy of harmony, it is harmony's way of restoring balance when things have drifted too far in one direction. In your romantic partnership, notice how the ancient wisdom of complementarity wants to express itself. When your partner is stressed and scattered, can you offer grounding presence? When they are closed and withdrawn, can you provide gentle warmth without demanding immediate reciprocation? When they are moving too fast, can you model a slower pace without criticism or judgment? The Tao never demands that you sacrifice yourself for others' happiness, nor that you force others to provide your fulfillment. Instead, it reveals the profound truth that when each person in a relationship is connected to their own authentic nature, harmony arises spontaneously. You give not from depletion but from overflow. You receive not from neediness but from open appreciation. Even in difficult relationships, the critical relative, the demanding boss, the friend who always takes but never gives, Tao offers a path of wisdom. You learn to interact without absorbing others' emotional weather. You practice maintaining your center while allowing others their own process. You discover that your peace is not dependent on anyone else's behavior, and paradoxically, this inner stability often creates space for others to find their own balance. Finances and natural abundance. Money carries tremendous emotional charge in our culture, yet from the perspective of the Tao, it is simply another form of energy that follows natural laws of circulation and flow. The problems most people experience with finances arise not from lack of resources, but from misunderstanding the nature of abundance itself. I have watched people with modest incomes live with genuine prosperity, and others with substantial wealth experience constant anxiety about scarcity. The difference lies not in the numbers in their bank accounts, but in their relationship with the flow of energy that money represents. The Tao teaches us that nature operates on principles of circulation, not accumulation. Rivers do not try to hoard water, they receive it from the sky and pass it toward the sea, remaining full through constant flow. Trees do not clutch their leaves, they release them in autumn, trusting that spring will bring renewal. Even our own bodies demonstrate this wisdom. Blood must circulate, breath must flow in and out, cells must continuously die and regenerate. When we apply these same principles to money, a profound shift occurs in our financial experience. We begin to see money not as something to grasp, but as something to receive gratefully and circulate wisely. We make financial decisions not from fear of scarcity, but from trust in the natural abundance that surrounds us. This does not mean being careless or impractical with money. The Tao always honors both prudence and generosity, both planning and spontaneity. A tree that gives away all its nutrients in spring cannot survive to produce fruit in autumn. Likewise, wise financial flow includes saving for future needs, investing in long-term growth, and maintaining reserves for unexpected circumstances. But these practical actions arise from a very different inner state than the typical financial anxiety that drives so many decisions. When you operate from trust rather than fear, you make choices that create sustainable abundance rather than temporary security. You invest in what truly serves your deepest values rather than what merely impresses others. You spend money in ways that enhance life rather than compensate for what feels missing in life. I remember a conversation with a small business owner who had struggled for years with feast or famine cycles in her income. She would work frantically during busy periods, driven by terror of the lean times she was certain would follow. Her anxiety about money colored every business decision, making her desperate in negotiations and clingy with clients. The very fear that was meant to protect her financially was actually limiting her financial growth. When she began to understand money as flowing energy rather than scarce commodity, everything shifted. She raised her prices to reflect the true value of her services. She stopped chasing clients who were not good fits and began attracting those who appreciated her work. She created systems that allowed her business to serve clients even when she was not working, generating more sustainable income streams. I realized I had been trying to dam the river instead of flowing with it, she told me. Now I focus on providing genuine value and trusting that compensation will follow naturally. Paradoxically, since I stopped worrying so much about money, more of it has flowed into my life. Consider your own relationship with money in this moment. Notice where you might be gripping too tightly, whether in spending, saving, or earning. What would it feel like to approach your finances like a gardener tends a garden, providing what is needed, removing what is harmful, and trusting the natural intelligence of growth and cycles? Remember that true abundance is not about having unlimited money, but about having enough resources flowing through your life to support what genuinely matters to you. Sometimes this means earning more, sometimes it means needing less, and often it means both simultaneously. Health is reflection of harmony. Your body speaks the language of the Tao more fluently than your mind ever will. Every symptom, every sensation, every fluctuation in energy carries information about your alignment with the natural rhythms that sustain life. When we learn to listen to this bodily wisdom with the same reverence we might offer to a sacred text, our relationship with health transforms from one of fear and control to one of partnership and trust. Modern medicine excels at treating symptoms and managing crises, and for this we can be deeply grateful. But the Taoist approach to health addresses the root conditions that create either disease or vitality: the quality of your breathing, the rhythm of your sleep, the nature of your thoughts, the balance between activity and rest, the harmony of your emotional life. I do not suggest abandoning medical care, but rather supplementing it with attention to the deeper patterns that influence your physical well-being. Your body is constantly seeking balance, and most symptoms are its attempts to restore harmony that has been disrupted by lifestyle, stress, or disconnection from natural rhythms. Consider the wisdom your body demonstrates without any conscious effort from you. Your heart beats in perfect rhythm, your lungs expand and contract in precise coordination, your digestive system transforms food into energy through processes more complex than any human technology. This same intelligence that governs your autonomic functions is constantly available to guide your conscious health choices, if you learn to listen. The Tao approach to health emphasizes prevention through alignment rather than cure through intervention. This might mean eating foods that are closer to their natural state rather than highly processed. It could involve moving your body in ways that feel good rather than forcing exercise routines you hate. It often includes creating regular periods of genuine rest, not just physical stillness, but mental and emotional quieting. One of my students, Maria, had struggled with chronic digestive issues for years. She had consulted multiple doctors, tried various medications, and experimented with elimination diets, but nothing provided lasting relief. When she began applying Taoist principles to her health, she made a surprising discovery: her digestive problems flared most severely during periods when she was suppressing anger or avoiding difficult conversations. I realized my stomach was carrying the emotions I didn't want to feel, she shared. When I started expressing my needs more honestly and setting clearer boundaries, my digestion began to improve. It was as if my body had been trying to tell me something important, and I finally learned to listen. This is the profound insight the Tao offers about health. Your physical body and your emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies are not separate systems but different expressions of the same life force. Chronic physical symptoms often point toward areas where life energy has become blocked or imbalanced in other dimensions of your existence. The practice becomes one of gentle detective work, exploring the connections between your physical sensations and your life patterns. Do you notice that your shoulders tense when you're overcommitting to projects? Does your sleep become restless when you're avoiding important decisions? Do certain foods leave you energized while others create fatigue or brain fog? This is not about becoming obsessively self-monitoring, but about developing a friendly relationship with the feedback your body provides. Like a wise counselor, your physical form is constantly offering guidance about what serves your well-being and what depletes it. The art lies in learning to receive this guidance with curiosity rather than judgment, adjusting your choices based on what you discover rather than following rigid rules. As you consider your own health patterns, I invite you to pause and notice: what is my body trying to tell me today? Where do I feel most alive and energized? What patterns or habits seem to enhance my vitality? What choices leave me feeling depleted or disconnected from my natural energy? True health, from the Taoist perspective, is not the absence of all symptoms, but the presence of vibrant life force flowing freely through your entire being. This vitality expresses itself as physical energy, emotional resilience, mental clarity, and spiritual openness. It is less about achieving some idealized state of perfection and more about cultivating dynamic balance that can adapt to life's constant changes. Creativity and authentic expression. Within every human soul lives an artist waiting to be expressed. This is not about talent in the conventional sense. Not everyone is meant to paint masterpieces or compose symphonies. Rather, it is about the fundamental creative force that seeks expression through your unique way of being in the world. Your creativity might emerge through how you prepare a meal, arrange your living space, solve problems at work, or interact with children. The Tao recognizes no hierarchy between forms of creative expression, only the invitation for authentic energy to flow through whatever medium calls to you. The greatest obstacle to natural creativity is our attachment to results. We become so focused on creating something impressive, profitable, or praiseworthy that we lose connection with the joy of creation itself. The Tao teaches us to fall in love with the process rather than the product, to find satisfaction in the act of creating rather than only in what we create. I think of my friend David, a software engineer who had always dreamed of writing poetry but convinced himself he lacked talent because his early attempts didn't match the published poets he admired. For years, he carried notebooks filled with fragments of verses he was too embarrassed to share, certain they weren't good enough to qualify as real poetry. When David began to understand creativity through the lens of Wu Wei, he stopped asking whether his poems were good and started asking whether writing them brought him alive. He discovered that the act of capturing thoughts and emotions in verse connected him to a deeper part of himself, regardless of whether anyone else would ever read his words. This shift from external validation to internal satisfaction transformed not only his writing but his entire approach to self-expression. I realized I had been trying to write poetry that would impress others instead of poetry that was true to my experience, he told me. When I stopped performing and started exploring, the words began to flow naturally. Some of what I write is terrible, and some of it surprises me with its beauty. But all of it is authentic, and that makes it valuable. This is the profound gift of approaching creativity from the Tao perspective. You discover that the creative act itself is its own reward. Whether you're cooking dinner, decorating your home, planning a project at work, or doodling during a phone call, you can engage with the spirit of play and exploration that makes any activity a form of artistic expression. The Tao also teaches us that creativity flows most freely when we are not forcing it. Like water seeking its natural level, creative energy wants to move through us in its own timing and rhythm. This might mean learning to write when inspiration strikes rather than only during scheduled times. It could involve letting yourself experiment without committing to finish every project you start. It often includes giving yourself permission to create badly as a doorway to creating authentically. Your creative expression is also deeply connected to your willingness to be vulnerable, to let others see aspects of your inner world that you might normally keep private. Every act of authentic creation is simultaneously an act of courage, a statement that who you are and what you have to offer matters enough to be shared with the world. As you reflect on your own creative impulses, notice what wants to be expressed through you. What activities make you lose track of time? What forms of beauty consistently capture your attention? What problems do you find yourself naturally wanting to solve or improve? These attractions are clues to the unique creative gifts that seek expression through your life. Remember that your creative contribution to the world may be quite different from what you imagine it should be. The mother who creates an atmosphere of warmth and safety in her home is expressing profound artistry. The teacher who finds innovative ways to help students understand difficult concepts is engaged in creative collaboration. The friend who knows exactly what to say to comfort someone in distress is practicing a form of verbal poetry. The world needs your particular creative contribution, not a copy of someone else's gifts, but the unique expression that can only flow through your individual perspective, experience, and way of being. Trust that this creative force within you knows what it wants to create, and your job is simply to provide it with opportunities and remove the obstacles that block its natural flow. Decision-making through inner wisdom. Every day, you face countless decisions, from small choices about what to wear or eat to significant life directions about relationships, career, and living situations. Most of us were taught to make decisions primarily through mental analysis, weighing pros and cons, researching options, seeking advice from others. While rational thinking certainly has its place, the Tao offers a deeper source of guidance that integrates mental clarity with intuitive knowing and bodily wisdom. Your inner wisdom operates through multiple channels simultaneously. Sometimes it speaks as a clear knowing that arises without logical explanation. Other times it communicates through physical sensations, the expansion you feel when considering one option versus the contraction that accompanies another. It might manifest as sudden clarity during quiet moments, or as persistent thoughts that return again and again despite your attempts to dismiss them. Learning to access this inner guidance requires developing a quality of inner stillness that allows subtle information to emerge. When your mind is constantly busy analyzing and planning, it can be difficult to hear the quieter voice of deeper knowing. This is why many wisdom traditions emphasize the importance of regular silence, meditation, or contemplative practice, not as escape from decision-making, but as preparation for making decisions from a more complete and integrated place. I remember working with a client named Jennifer who was struggling with whether to leave a well-paying corporate job to start her own consulting practice. On paper, the decision seemed obvious: she would be taking a significant financial risk with no guarantee of success. Her mind generated endless lists of reasons why leaving would be foolish and impractical. But every time Jennifer sat quietly and imagined herself continuing in her current role for another year, her body responded with a sense of heaviness and constriction. When she visualized herself working independently, despite the uncertainties involved, she felt a lightness and energy that was unmistakable. Her mind said stay, but her deeper wisdom said go. I realized I had been trying to make the decision that looked good on paper instead of the decision that felt right in my bones, she told me months later, after successfully launching her consulting practice. Learning to trust my inner knowing didn't make the choice less scary, but it made it much clearer. This is not about abandoning rational thinking, but about expanding your decision-making process to include information that pure logic might miss. Your analytical mind excels at processing external data, but your inner wisdom has access to information about your deepest values, your authentic desires, your natural talents, and your life's larger direction that may not be immediately obvious to conscious thought. The practice involves learning to hold both perspectives simultaneously, honoring what your mind discovers through research and analysis while also paying attention to what your deeper knowing reveals through stillness and inner listening. Sometimes these sources of information align perfectly. Other times they seem to contradict each other, and you must find a way to honor both the practical considerations and the deeper calling. One helpful approach is to make space for what I call decision-making conversations with yourself. After gathering the external information you need, set aside time to sit quietly and simply ask, what wants to emerge through this decision? What choice would most serve my authentic growth and the well-being of all involved? Then listen without immediately trying to answer, allowing whatever arises to be received without judgment. Pay attention to how different options feel in your body. Notice what expands your energy and what contracts it. Observe which possibilities generate excitement and which create anxiety. Remember that some anxiety may be a natural response to growth and change, while other anxiety might be a signal that something is not aligned with your deeper truth. Trust that you have access to wisdom beyond what your conscious mind can calculate. This doesn't mean making impulsive decisions or ignoring practical considerations, but rather including the intelligence of your whole being, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, in your decision-making process. As you face your own choices, both large and small, experiment with this more integrated approach. What would it be like to make decisions not only with your head, but with your heart, your gut, your entire being? How might your life unfold differently if you trusted the wisdom that lives within you as much as the information that comes from outside you? Navigating conflict with softness. Conflict is woven into the fabric of human existence like weather patterns are woven into the natural world. Just as storms are not mistakes in nature's design but necessary movements that restore atmospheric balance, the disagreements and tensions that arise in our relationships often serve to reveal and resolve underlying imbalances that need attention. The conventional approach to conflict typically involves either fighting to win or avoiding to escape. We marshal our arguments like weapons, or we withdraw behind walls of silence and resentment. Both strategies create more separation rather than resolution, more tension rather than harmony. The Tao offers a third path, engaging conflict with the soft power that allows water to eventually wear smooth the hardest stone. This softness is not weakness or passive submission. Rather, it is the kind of strength that yields without breaking, that can absorb impact without being destroyed, that finds creative solutions by flowing around obstacles rather than attacking them directly. When you approach conflict from this perspective, something remarkable happens. The other person's defensiveness begins to dissolve because they no longer perceive you as a threat to be defeated. I witnessed this principle beautifully demonstrated by my neighbor Robert during a property dispute with the family next door. Their teenage son had been playing music late into the evening, and previous attempts to address the situation had escalated into heated arguments that left both families feeling angry and defensive. Instead of approaching the conversation with demands or criticisms, Robert visited his neighbors with genuine curiosity about their perspective. He shared his own needs for quiet during evening hours, but he also asked about their son's interests and whether there might be creative solutions that could work for everyone. By the end of the conversation, they had arranged for the boy to use headphones after 9 p.m. and to join Robert's jazz ensemble, which practiced on weekend afternoons when the noise wouldn't disturb anyone. I realized I had been treating them like adversaries instead of neighbors with different needs, Robert reflected. When I stopped trying to win and started trying to understand, we found options that none of us had considered before. This is the transformative power of bringing Taoist principles to conflict resolution. You discover that most disagreements are not really about who is right and who is wrong, but about different people trying to meet legitimate needs in ways that happen to interfere with each other. When you can step back from the positions people are defending and explore the underlying needs they are trying to meet, creative solutions often emerge naturally. The practice requires developing what I call conflict aikido, the ability to receive someone's emotional energy without either absorbing it into your own system or reflecting it back with equal intensity. When someone approaches you with anger, you can acknowledge their frustration without becoming angry yourself. When someone attacks your ideas, you can defend your perspective without attacking theirs in return. This does not mean allowing others to treat you disrespectfully or compromising your essential boundaries. Softness in conflict is not about becoming a doormat, but about maintaining your center while creating space for resolution to emerge. Sometimes this means saying no very clearly but without harshness. Other times it means holding firm to your values while remaining curious about different viewpoints. The key insight is that conflict resolution happens not through force but through understanding, not through winning but through finding solutions that honor everyone's deepest needs. When you approach disagreements with this spirit of collaborative problem-solving rather than competitive debate, you often discover that what initially seemed like irreconcilable differences are actually complementary perspectives that can strengthen each other. In your own conflicts, whether with family members, colleagues, or strangers, experiment with this softer approach. Before responding to what someone is saying, take a breath and try to sense what they might be feeling underneath their words. Ask questions that help you understand their perspective rather than questions designed to prove your point. Look for the kernel of truth in their position even when you disagree with their conclusions. Remember that every conflict is an opportunity to practice the profound art of staying connected to your own truth while remaining open to learning something new. This is perhaps one of the most practical applications of Taoist wisdom, the discovery that you can be both strong and flexible, both clear about your needs and curious about others, both committed to your values and willing to find creative ways to honor them. As the afternoon light shifts across my garden, I am reminded that these principles we have explored, approaching work as cultivation, relationships as dance, money as flowing energy, health as balance, creativity as authentic expression, decisions as inner listening, and conflict as collaborative problem-solving, are not separate techniques to be mastered individually. They are different facets of a single gem, the art of living in alignment with the natural intelligence that animates all life. The beauty of Taoist practice lies not in its complexity but in its simplicity. You do not need to transform everything at once or achieve perfect application of these principles before they begin to benefit your life. Like a gardener who tends growing things, you can begin wherever you are, with whatever situation currently calls for your attention, trusting that small shifts in alignment create ripple effects throughout your entire existence. Take a moment now to reflect, which of these areas of daily life feels most ready for transformation in your experience? Where do you notice the greatest sense of struggle or resistance? What would it feel like to approach that particular aspect of your life with the soft persistence of water, the patient wisdom of seasons, the natural intelligence that grows oak trees from acorns without force or hurry? Consider also where you might already be naturally applying these principles without realizing it. In what situations do you find yourself flowing rather than forcing? When do you naturally listen to your inner wisdom? How do you already create harmony in your relationships or approach your work with a spirit of cultivation? Acknowledging what is already working can provide a foundation for expanding these qualities into other areas of your life. Finally, I invite you to choose one simple practice from our exploration to experiment with over the coming week. Perhaps you will approach one challenging relationship with greater curiosity about the other person's perspective. Maybe you will make one important decision by including your bodily wisdom alongside your mental analysis. You might treat one work project as an opportunity for spiritual cultivation rather than merely a task to be completed. Remember that transformation through the Tao happens not through dramatic gestures but through countless small moments of alignment with your deepest nature. Each time you choose flow over force, each time you respond from wisdom rather than reactivity, each time you trust the natural intelligence that lives within you, you are participating in the ancient art of living in harmony with the way that underlies all existence. The path continues to unfold step by step, breath by breath, choice by choice. Trust the process, honor your own timing, and allow the principles we have explored to work their quiet magic in the beautiful laboratory of your daily life. Daily practices. When the morning light first touches the horizon, something ancient stirs within us, a remembering that we too are part of nature's endless dance of awakening and rest. I have walked this earth for countless seasons, and what strikes me most profoundly is how we have forgotten that every breath, every step, every meal can be a doorway back to the Tao. The practices I share with you are not burdens to add to your already full days, but invitations to transform the ordinary moments you already live into sacred encounters with your deepest nature. Natural breath meditation. In my years of observing both the restless and the peaceful, I have noticed that breath is the bridge between our hurried minds and our timeless souls. The breath that flows through you now connects you to every living being, to the wind that moves through ancient forests, to the first breath you took as a child, and to the cosmic rhythm that pulses through all existence. You need not sit in any special position or create elaborate rituals. Simply notice that you are already breathing. Feel the cool air entering through your nostrils, like a gentle stream flowing into a mountain cave. Notice how your belly naturally expands like a balloon filling with the essence of life itself. There is no forcing here, no trying to breathe differently than you already are. The Tao flows through your breath without your effort or control. As you exhale, imagine you are releasing not just air, but all the tension you have been carrying in your shoulders, the worry that has been living in your chest, the endless chatter that has been occupying your mind. Your out-breath is like the evening mist returning to the sky, a natural letting go that requires no struggle. I often tell people that 3 minutes of this natural breathing is worth more than hours of forced meditation. When you honor your breath as it is, you honor the Tao as it moves through you. The ancient pine trees do not effort to breathe, yet they stand tall for centuries. The sleeping infant breathes with perfect rhythm without any technique. You too can return to this effortless way. Try this now. Place one hand on your chest, one on your belly. Which hand moves more when you breathe naturally? Most modern people breathe high in their chest, as if they are perpetually startled. But watch a cat sleeping in a sunny window, or remember how you breathed as a child during deep sleep. The movement was low, deep, like gentle waves on a calm lake. Take a moment to reflect. When during your day do you notice your breath becoming shallow or held? What would change if you remembered to return to natural breathing during stressful moments? How might your presence with others shift if you carried this breath awareness into conversations? Practice. Set 3 gentle reminders throughout your day, perhaps when you first wake, before eating lunch, and as you prepare for sleep. At each reminder, take just 3 natural breaths, feeling your connection to the rhythm of life itself. Urban walking meditation. The concrete beneath your feet connects to the same earth that nourishes ancient forests. The air you breathe in the city carries the same life force that moves through pristine mountains. Walking meditation is not about escaping to perfect natural settings, but about recognizing that wherever you are, the Tao is there with you. When I first began teaching people to walk meditatively through their daily lives, many protested that their environments were too chaotic, too noisy, too artificial. But I have learned that the bustling marketplace can be as sacred as the quiet temple if we bring the right awareness to our steps. Begin by feeling your feet making contact with whatever surface supports you. Whether you are walking on polished office floors, rough sidewalks, or soft grass, each step is a conversation between your body and the earth. The weight shifting from heel to toe, the subtle balance adjustments your body makes without your conscious direction, all of this is the Tao expressing itself through your movement. Notice that you do not have to think about how to walk. Your legs know their rhythm, your arms naturally swing in counterbalance, your eyes naturally find their focus. This is Wu Wei in its most basic form, action happening through you without forced effort. As you walk, you can let yourself be walked by the same intelligence that guides rivers to the sea and birds across vast skies. Instead of treating the sounds around you as distractions, welcome them as part of the meditation. The rumble of traffic becomes like distant thunder, reminding you of nature's power moving through human creations. Voices of passers-by are like bird calls, each carrying their own energy and story. The rhythm of construction work becomes percussion in the symphony of city life. When you approach a red light or find your path blocked, instead of experiencing impatience, you can practice receiving these pauses as gifts. These are moments when the Tao is inviting you to stop, breathe, and notice what usually passes by unobserved. Perhaps you notice the way light moves through leaves on a street tree, or the expression of kindness on a stranger's face, or the way your own energy shifts when you stop rushing. Walking meditation teaches you that every destination you move toward is less important than how you travel. The meeting you are walking to, the store you are visiting, the home you are returning to, these are waypoints in the journey, but the real experience is happening in each step along the way. Consider, what changes in your body and mind when you walk with awareness versus when you walk on autopilot? How might your daily transitions feel different if you used walking time as meditation time? What do you notice about your surroundings that you have been missing? Practice. Choose one regular walk in your routine, perhaps from your car to your workplace, or around your neighborhood. For the next week, use this walk as meditation time, feeling your feet, breathing naturally, and welcoming whatever you encounter as part of the practice. Mindful eating is sacred practice. In the simple act of bringing food to your mouth, you participate in the ancient dance of receiving life from life. The apple you eat carries within it the sunshine that warmed its tree, the rain that nourished its roots, the soil that held it steady through seasons of growth. When you eat with awareness, you commune not just with your meal, but with the entire web of existence that made it possible. I have observed that many people eat as if their food were fuel for a machine rather than medicine for the soul. They rush through meals while reading, talking, thinking, planning, anywhere but present with the miracle happening in their mouths. Yet eating offers us one of the most accessible doorways back to wonder and gratitude. Before you take your first bite, pause. Look at your food with curious eyes, as if you have never seen such colors, textures, and forms before. Notice the steam rising from warm dishes like incense offerings, the way light plays on the surface of liquids, the arrangement of elements on your plate like a mandala of nourishment. Take a moment to appreciate the hands that prepared this food, the journey it traveled to reach you, the chain of care and intention that brought it from seed or birth to your table. This is not about complicated gratitude rituals, but about recognizing the truth that you are not separate from what you eat, you are part of one continuous flow of energy transforming itself moment by moment. When you place the first bite in your mouth, let it rest on your tongue before chewing. Notice textures, temperatures, flavors that reveal themselves slowly. Chew with the same attention you might bring to listening to beautiful music, letting each sensation register fully before moving to the next bite. You might discover that food has flavors you never noticed, that your body has wisdom about what it needs that your mind has been overriding. Eating slowly is not about following rules, but about allowing your natural rhythms to guide you. Your stomach has its own intelligence about fullness and satisfaction, but it speaks in whispers that can only be heard when you pause and listen. The ancient Taoists understood that digestion begins with peaceful reception. When you eat in stress or hurry, you ask your body to process not just food, but chaos. Between bites, you might set your utensils down and breathe. Notice what is happening in your body as it receives nourishment. Feel the gratitude that wants to naturally arise when you slow down enough to recognize the gift you are receiving. This is not forced thankfulness, but the organic appreciation that emerges when we truly pay attention. What do you discover about your relationship with food when you eat without distractions? How does your body's wisdom about hunger and satisfaction reveal itself when you slow down? What changes in your digestion and energy when you eat as a meditation rather than a task? Practice. Choose one meal each day to eat in complete silence and awareness. Start with just the first 3 bites if a whole meal feels overwhelming. Notice everything: colors, textures, flavors, the movement of your jaw, the act of swallowing, the way your body receives what you offer it. Sacred bookends, dawn and dusk rituals. The moments when day transitions to night and night transitions to day are thin places where the veil between ordinary consciousness and deeper awareness naturally lifts. These transitions happen whether we notice them or not, but when we consciously participate in them, they become gateways for aligning our personal rhythms with the greater rhythms of existence. Your morning awakening is a daily resurrection, a fresh opportunity to choose who you will be in the world. Instead of immediately reaching for your phone or launching into mental planning, what if you gave yourself just 5 minutes to arrive fully in your body and in the day? This is not about creating another item on your to-do list, but about honoring the miracle that you have been given another day of life. As you first open your eyes, before sitting up, take 3 deep breaths and feel your body resting in bed like a boat floating on calm water. Notice any dreams that are still lingering at the edges of your consciousness. Sometimes these carry messages from deeper parts of yourself that only speak when your rational mind is quiet. Stretch gently, like a cat awakening from a nap, letting your muscles remember their aliveness. When you do rise, consider making your bed as your first act of bringing order and intention to the day. This simple task is a way of saying yes to the day ahead, of creating beauty in a small way, of completing something before you have even left your bedroom. It is a tiny act of self-respect that sets a tone of care for everything that follows. Your morning ritual might include stepping outside for just a moment, even if only to a doorway or window, to feel the temperature of the air and notice the quality of light. Is it crisp autumn coolness that awakens your senses? Warm summer humidity that embraces you like a gentle hug? The gray softness of overcast skies that invites introspection? Each day offers its own energy signature, and when you pause to receive it, you can align your day's activities with what the weather and season are naturally supporting. Evening practices are about conscious completion, about digesting not just your food but your experiences, about releasing the day so that sleep can be restoration rather than worry. An hour before bed, consider dimming the lights in your living space to signal to your nervous system that it is time to begin winding down. This is working with your body's natural rhythms rather than fighting them with bright screens and stimulating activities until the moment you expect to fall asleep. Before sleep, you might spend a few minutes reviewing your day with compassion rather than judgment. What went well? What challenged you? What did you learn about yourself? This is not analysis or problem solving, but gentle acknowledgement of your human experience, like tending a garden by noticing what grew and what needs different care tomorrow. As you lie down to sleep, you can offer gratitude for your bed, your shelter, your safety, simple appreciations for the basic conditions that support your rest. Place your hands on your heart and feel it beating steadily, this faithful companion that has been with you through every moment of your life. Let your last conscious thoughts be ones of peace rather than planning, trust rather than worry. How does your day unfold differently when it begins and ends with conscious intention rather than reactivity? What changes in your sleep quality when you prepare for rest as carefully as you prepare for important meetings? How might these simple bookends create more sacredness in the hours between? Practice. For the next week, create simple 5-minute rituals for waking and sleeping. Let them be personal and meaningful to you, perhaps including gratitude, intention setting, connection with nature, or simply mindful breathing. Notice how these practices ripple into the rest of your day and night. Cultivating life energy. Your body is not a machine that simply processes food and executes commands from your mind. It is a dynamic field of energy in constant conversation with all the energy around you, the electromagnetic field of the earth, the ionic charges in the air after thunderstorms, the subtle emanations from other living beings. Learning to cultivate and direct your life energy is like learning to tend the fire that keeps you not just alive, but vibrantly present to life. The ancient Taoists called this energy qi, recognizing it as the animating force that makes a living body different from a corpse, that makes a flourishing plant different from a withered one. You do not need to believe in esoteric concepts to work with your energy. You already know the difference between feeling energized and feeling depleted, between the aliveness that comes from meaningful work and the drain that comes from activities that go against your nature. One of the simplest ways to cultivate energy is through gentle movement that connects your breath with physical flow. Standing with your feet shoulder-width apart, imagine you are a tree with roots extending deep into the earth and branches reaching toward the sky. Raise your arms slowly as you inhale, as if you are gathering energy from above. Lower them as you exhale, as if you are sending that energy down through your body into the earth. This is not exercise in the Western sense of muscle building, but circulation of the life force that already flows through you. Another practice involves what I call energy awareness, simply noticing how different activities, environments, and interactions affect your vitality. After spending time with certain people, do you feel more alive or more drained? In which environments does your energy naturally expand? In nature, in quiet spaces, in creative environments? Which foods leave you feeling clear and energized versus heavy and sluggish? Your hands are particularly sensitive to energy flow. Try rubbing your palms together vigorously for 30 seconds, then slowly separating them and feeling the tingling sensation between them. This is your life force made tangible. You can place these energized hands on any part of your body that feels tense or tired, your lower back, your neck, your stomach, and simply rest them there with loving attention. You are not trying to fix or heal, but offering yourself the same caring touch you might give to a beloved friend. Breathing practices can also cultivate energy when done with awareness rather than force. Try breathing in through your nose while imagining you are drawing energy up from the earth through the soles of your feet. Hold the breath gently while feeling this energy circulating through your body. Exhale through your mouth while imagining any stagnant or negative energy flowing out and away. This is not visualization in the sense of pretending, but paying attention to sensations and energy flows that are actually happening. The key to all energy cultivation is gentleness and consistency rather than intensity and sporadic effort. Like tending a garden, small daily attention yields better results than occasional dramatic interventions. 5 minutes of mindful movement each morning will serve you better than an hour-long workout you do only when motivated. What do you notice about your energy patterns throughout the day? When do you naturally feel most vital, and when do you tend to feel depleted? How might honoring these natural rhythms change how you structure your time? What activities or practices make you feel most authentically energized? Practice. Each morning for the next week, spend 5 minutes doing gentle movements while focusing on your breath, perhaps simple stretching, arm circles, or the tree breathing described above. Notice how this affects your energy and presence throughout the day. Contemplative writing. Words have the power to clarify what is murky in your mind, to give form to feelings that swim just below the surface of awareness, to create a bridge between your conscious thoughts and the deeper wisdom that lives in your body and soul. When you write contemplatively, you engage in a form of meditation that uses language as a tool for discovery rather than performance. This is not the writing you learned in school, with its emphasis on correct grammar, logical structure, and impressive vocabulary. Contemplative writing is more like having a conversation with yourself on paper, allowing thoughts and feelings to emerge without editing or judgment. It is a way of thinking with your hand, of letting your pen be a divining rod that helps you discover what you did not know you knew. Begin with simple questions that invite exploration rather than definitive answers. What am I feeling right now? What is my body trying to tell me? What wants my attention today? What am I grateful for? What am I worried about? Let your pen move across the page without stopping to think about whether your words make sense or sound good. The goal is not to create beautiful prose, but to create space for your inner voice to speak. Sometimes you might find yourself writing the same concern or question repeatedly, and this is valuable information. Our minds often circle around certain themes because they contain important messages we have not yet fully received. Instead of becoming frustrated with this repetition, you can become curious about what your psyche is trying to help you understand. Other times you might surprise yourself by writing things you did not consciously think or feel. This is your deeper wisdom speaking, the part of you that notices patterns and connections your analytical mind misses. Honor these insights even if they do not immediately make logical sense. Often the most profound guidance comes not through reasoning but through the kind of knowing that emerges when we create space for it. You might also use writing to dialogue with different aspects of yourself, the part that wants to make changes and the part that resists change, the adult self and the inner child, the worried mind and the trusting heart. Write a question from one part of yourself, then let another part respond. This practice can help you understand internal conflicts with compassion rather than trying to suppress or override different aspects of your experience. Contemplative writing can also be a way of processing difficult emotions without becoming overwhelmed by them. When you feel angry, sad, confused, or afraid, you can pour these feelings onto paper where they become something you can witness rather than something that possesses you. The act of writing often transforms raw emotion into insight, chaos into clarity. Do not worry about keeping or sharing what you write. This is not about creating something for others to read, but about using writing as a tool for inner exploration and emotional digestion. You might write in a journal you keep, or on loose paper you later throw away, or even on your computer if that feels more natural. What emerges when you write without trying to sound intelligent or impressive? What patterns do you notice in your concerns, desires, and insights when you write regularly? How does putting your inner experience into words change your relationship with your thoughts and feelings? Practice. Set aside 10 minutes each morning or evening to write without stopping. Do not worry about topic or structure, simply let your hand move and see what wants to be expressed. If you feel stuck, write about feeling stuck. If you feel peaceful, write about peace. Let the writing be a mirror for whatever is present in your inner landscape. Working with dreams. Each night as you surrender to sleep, you enter a realm where your rational mind steps aside and deeper layers of consciousness take the stage. Dreams are not random neurological firings, but messages from the parts of yourself that perceive patterns, connections, and possibilities your waking mind might miss. Learning to receive these nocturnal teachings is like having access to a wise counselor who speaks in the language of symbols and stories. You do not need to become an expert in dream interpretation to benefit from your dreams. The most important step is simply beginning to pay attention, to treat your dreams as worthy of consideration rather than dismissing them as meaningless or too strange to matter. Keep a notebook and pen beside your bed, or use the voice recording function on your phone to capture dreams immediately upon waking, before they fade like morning mist. Even if you remember only fragments, an image, a feeling, a single scene, record what you recall without judgment. Dreams often come in pieces that seem unrelated until you notice patterns over time. The recurring dream about being late for something important might be showing you areas of life where you feel unprepared. Dreams of flying or moving through water might reflect your relationship with freedom and emotional flow. Pay special attention to the emotions in your dreams, as these often carry more meaning than the specific events. A dream where everything goes wrong but you feel peaceful might be showing you your growing capacity to remain centered during chaos. A dream where wonderful things happen but you feel anxious might be revealing fears about receiving good things in your life. Sometimes dreams offer direct guidance for waking life situations. You might dream of a conversation with someone you have been avoiding, showing you words you need to speak or perspectives you have not considered. You might dream of finding yourself in a beautiful place, pointing toward experiences or environments that would nourish your soul. Other dreams seem to help you process emotions or experiences that were too much to fully digest during waking hours. Dreams of deceased loved ones often bring healing or closure. Dreams that replay difficult situations sometimes offer opportunities to respond differently, to find your power in scenarios where you previously felt helpless. You can also work with dreams actively by setting intentions before sleep. As you lie in bed, you might ask for guidance about a situation you are facing, or request healing dreams, or simply ask to remember whatever dreams might be helpful for your growth. This is not about controlling your dreams, but about opening yourself to receive whatever wisdom your unconscious mind wants to share. When you wake from a particularly vivid or meaningful dream, you can spend a few minutes breathing with the feelings it evoked, letting its energy move through your body. Sometimes the gift of a dream is not intellectual understanding but the emotional or energetic experience it provides. What themes appear repeatedly in your dreams? How do the emotions in your dreams relate to what you are experiencing in waking life? What happens when you treat your dreams as messages worth receiving rather than random nonsense? Practice. For the next 2 weeks, keep a dream journal beside your bed. Each morning, immediately record whatever you remember, even if it is only a single image or feeling. At the end of each week, read through your entries and notice any patterns or recurring themes. Consider what your unconscious mind might be trying to communicate. Moments of sacred pause. In the spaces between your activities, in the pause between inhale and exhale, in the silence between thoughts, lies a doorway to the eternal present moment. These spaces exist naturally throughout your day, but they usually pass unnoticed as your mind rushes from one concern to the next. Learning to recognize and inhabit these natural pauses is like discovering hidden rest stops on the highway of your busy life. You do not need to create more time in your day or add more activities to your schedule. Sacred pauses happen in time that already exists, the moment when you first sit down at your desk before opening your computer, the few seconds while your coffee brews, the time spent waiting for an elevator or sitting at a red light. These transitions already occur, the practice is learning to arrive fully in them rather than using them to mentally rehearse what comes next. When you notice you are in a transitional moment, instead of immediately filling it with mental activity, you can take one conscious breath and feel your feet on the ground. You can notice 3 things you can see, 2 things you can hear, and 1 thing you can feel through your skin. This simple practice brings you immediately into sensory presence, interrupting the trance of constant thinking. These pauses become especially valuable during difficult or stressful periods. When you receive challenging news, before reacting, you can pause and breathe. When you feel anger rising in response to someone's words, you can pause and feel your feet on the earth. When you notice anxiety about future events, you can pause and return to what is actually happening right now. These moments of pause create space between stimulus and response, allowing wisdom to emerge instead of automatic reaction. Sacred pauses can also be moments of appreciation and wonder. Before entering your home after work, you might pause on the threshold and feel gratitude for having shelter. Before beginning a meal, you might pause and appreciate the colors and textures on your plate. Before answering the phone when someone you love is calling, you might pause and feel your affection for them. The beauty of these practices is their invisibility to others. You can pause and breathe in the middle of a busy meeting, and no one will know you are meditating. You can find your center while waiting in line at the grocery store, and no one will know you are practicing presence. These pauses become like secret gardens of peace that you can visit anywhere, anytime. Over time, these moments of pause begin to change your relationship with time itself. Instead of feeling like time is always running out, you begin to discover the timeless quality that lives within present moment awareness. Paradoxically, when you stop rushing through transitional moments, you often find that you have more time and accomplish things with greater ease and efficiency. The key is starting small and being consistent rather than trying to pause dramatically. Even 3 seconds of conscious breathing before getting out of bed in the morning begins to cultivate this awareness. Even 1 pause per day, if done with genuine presence, plants seeds that will grow into greater mindfulness throughout your days. What natural transition points already exist in your daily routine? How does it feel in your body when you pause consciously versus when you rush through moments? What changes in your stress level and sense of well-being when you regularly create these moments of return to presence? Practice. Identify 3 natural transition points in your typical day, perhaps before starting your car, before entering your workplace, and before beginning dinner. For the next week, use these moments as opportunities to pause, breathe, and arrive fully in the present moment. Notice how these small practices affect the quality of your entire day. As the sun sets on our exploration of these daily practices, I want you to know that you already possess everything needed to transform your ordinary life into an ongoing spiritual practice. These suggestions are not prescriptions to follow rigidly, but invitations to discover what resonates with your unique nature and circumstances. The Tao flows differently through each person, and your practices should honor your particular path while connecting you to the universal rhythms we all share. Remember that transformation happens not through perfect execution of techniques, but through patient, compassionate attention to your actual experience. Some days you will remember to breathe consciously, write contemplatively, and pause mindfully. Other days you will forget completely, and this too is part of the natural rhythm of awakening. The practice is not about becoming someone who never forgets, but about remembering with kindness when you notice you have forgotten. Let these practices be like water finding its natural course, flowing where there is openness, pooling where there is receptivity, always moving toward the sea of greater awareness that is your deepest nature. Trust that even the smallest sincere effort toward presence and mindfulness creates ripples that extend far beyond what you can see, touching not only your own life but the lives of all those you encounter along the way. Chapter 6: Parables and Case Studies. The morning mist clings to the valley as I watch a young bamboo bend gracefully in the wind, while the mighty oak beside it stands rigid against the same breeze. In time, I know which will survive the storm. This ancient teaching lives not only in nature's classroom but in the very real stories of those who have walked the path of transformation I'm sharing with you. Over these many years of witnessing human struggle and awakening, I have observed that wisdom takes root most deeply when it arrives wrapped in story. The mind that rejects direct teaching opens like a flower to narrative. So let me share with you 7 stories, 7 windows into how the timeless principles of the Tao have breathed new life into modern hearts. The story of Marcus, the tree that learned to bend. Marcus arrived at my understanding through crisis, as many do. At 42, he commanded a technology company with the iron fist of a man who believed force was the only language the world understood. His days began at 5 a.m. with aggressive workouts, continued through 16-hour marathons of meetings, demands, and ultimatums, and ended near midnight with his mind still churning strategies for tomorrow's battles. I built this company by never backing down, he told me during our first conversation, his jaw set like granite. Weakness gets you eaten alive in my industry. But Marcus's body had begun speaking a different language. Chronic headaches, a bleeding ulcer, and a blood pressure reading that made his doctor's eyebrows disappear into his hairline. His teenage daughter barely looked up when he entered a room. His wife had started taking separate vacations. The transformation began on a Tuesday morning when Marcus witnessed something that cracked his worldview open like an egg. A massive storm had swept through the city overnight, and from his office window, he watched city crews clear debris. Every mighty tree that had stood rigid against the wind lay broken across streets and sidewalks. Yet the bamboo grove in the park across from his building swayed intact, dancing in the morning breeze as if nothing had happened. This image haunted him for weeks. In our conversations, I helped Marcus understand what he had seen, the difference between strength and brittleness, between power and force, between leading and controlling. But if I stop pushing, everything will fall apart, he protested, the fear naked in his voice. I invited him to experiment. For just 1 week, I suggested, try leading like water. Water never pushes, yet it moves mountains. The first day of Marcus's experiment with Wu Wei nearly broke his resolve. Instead of barking orders in his morning staff meeting, he asked questions. Instead of imposing solutions, he listened. When his head of development presented a problem, Marcus's impulse was to jump in with commands. Instead, he leaned back and said, "What do you think would work best?" The strangest thing happened, Marcus told me later. They came up with a better solution than I would have forced on them. Over the following months, Marcus learned to recognize the difference between necessary action and compulsive control. He discovered that his most effective leadership moments came not when he pushed hardest, but when he created space for others to rise. Like the bamboo, he began to bend without breaking. The transformation rippled through every aspect of his life. Team meetings became collaborative workshops. His company's innovation increased dramatically as people felt safe to contribute ideas. At home, instead of arriving like a general inspecting troops, Marcus learned to enter like water flowing into a vessel, adapting to the shape of his family's needs. I thought flexibility was weakness, Marcus reflected 6 months later. I didn't understand it was the highest strength. His health markers normalized. His daughter started seeking his advice. His wife canceled her separate vacation plans because she wanted to travel with him again. Take a moment to reflect. Where in your life are you being the rigid oak instead of the flexible bamboo? What would it look like to lead with questions instead of commands? How might your relationships change if you approached them with the persistence of water rather than the force of wind? The story of Elena, the urban garden mystic. Elena discovered the Tao through dirt under her fingernails. A marketing executive living in a cramped Chicago apartment, she had convinced herself that spiritual awakening required retreats to mountains or monasteries. The truth found her on her fire escape, in 12 square feet of space and a handful of clay pots. Her journey began with a single dying plant, a peace lily her ex-boyfriend had left behind. Elena knew nothing about gardening, but something in the plant's wilted leaves called to her. Perhaps it was recognizing a kindred spirit, for Elena too felt withered despite her external success. I didn't know I was learning the Tao, she tells people now. I thought I was just trying to keep a plant alive. That first week, Elena did everything wrong with the enthusiasm of inexperience. She overwatered, overfertilized, and moved the pot constantly to find the perfect spot. The plant responded by growing sicker. In desperation, she called her grandmother in Mexico. Mija, her grandmother laughed gently, plants are like people. They don't need you to fix them. They need you to listen. This simple advice became Elena's first lesson in Wu Wei, though she wouldn't learn that term until months later. She began observing the plant instead of managing it. She noticed how its leaves reached toward morning light but drooped in harsh afternoon sun. She learned to read the soil with her finger, understanding when it truly needed water versus when she wanted to do something helpful. Slowly, the peace lily began to recover. Elena found herself sitting with it each morning before work, drinking coffee and watching light move across the leaves. These moments of stillness were the first peaceful minutes she'd experienced in years. Success with one plant led to another, then another. Soon, her fire escape bloomed with tomatoes, herbs, and flowers. But more importantly, the lessons learned in soil began transforming Elena's approach to everything else. At work, instead of forcing marketing campaigns into existence through sheer will, Elena learned to cultivate them. She would plant the seed of an idea, tend it with research and creativity, then allow it to grow toward the light of market needs. Her campaigns became more successful, but also more effortless. In relationships, Elena stopped trying to make herself indispensable through constant giving and fixing. Like her plants, she learned that people needed space to grow, consistent care without smothering, and trust in their own capacity to flourish. The most profound transformation came in Elena's relationship with time itself. Tending a garden had taught her that growth happens on nature's schedule, not hers. She stopped trying to force outcomes and started trusting process. Projects that had once stressed her with their timelines now unfolded with organic rhythm. My plants taught me that I was already whole, Elena explains. I didn't need to become something else. I needed to create conditions for what was already inside me to emerge. 2 years after rescuing that dying peace lily, Elena left her marketing career to start an urban gardening consultancy. But more than changing jobs, she had changed her fundamental relationship with life itself. She now teaches others what her plants taught her, that wisdom grows best in the marriage of attention and non-interference, care and letting go. Pause and consider, what in your life needs tending rather than forcing? How might you create better conditions for growth instead of demanding immediate results? What would happen if you trusted the natural timing of your own unfolding? The story of James, the artist who stopped forcing. The music industry had nearly killed James's love of music by the time he found his way to Taoist principles. For 7 years, he had chased the dream of becoming a famous guitarist with the relentless hunger of a man convinced that success was just one perfect song, one right connection, one lucky breakaway. James's apartment was a shrine to ambition frustrated, dozens of half-finished songs, business cards from industry contacts who no longer return his calls, and a wall covered with rejection letters from record labels. He practiced 8 hours a day with the grim determination of someone mining for gold in an empty cave. I knew I was talented, James tells me, his voice carrying the memory of that old desperation. But nothing I created felt alive. Everything sounded like I was trying too hard. The turning point came during what James now calls his dark night of the soul, a particularly brutal rejection from a label that had shown initial interest in his work. The A&R representative's words still echoed in his mind, technically proficient, but it lacks something. There's no flow. That word, flow, haunted James for weeks. In his frustration, he did something he hadn't done in years. He stopped trying. For 3 days, he didn't touch his guitar. Instead, he walked. He sat in parks. He listened to silence. On the 4th day, he picked up his guitar not to practice or create or accomplish anything, but simply because his hands missed the familiar weight of the instrument. What emerged was different from anything he had produced in years of disciplined effort. The melody seemed to play itself, his fingers finding notes he hadn't consciously chosen. It was like the guitar was teaching me instead of me forcing it to obey, James recalls. For the first time in years, I was making music instead of manufacturing it. This experience opened James to a completely different approach to creativity. Instead of forcing songs into existence through willpower and technique, he learned to create space for music to emerge. His practice sessions became conversations with his instrument rather than demands upon it. James began studying the concept of Wu Wei, actionless action. He learned to recognize the difference between the effort that comes from anxiety and the effort that flows from engagement. When he played from anxiety, his music felt tight and contrived. When he played from flow, magic happened. The transformation extended beyond his music. James stopped networking with desperate intensity and began building genuine relationships with other musicians. Instead of trying to impress industry professionals, he focused on serving the music itself. He collaborated with others not to gain connections but because the creative process called for it. 6 months into this new approach, something unexpected happened. A song James had recorded in this state of flow, a piece he had created with no commercial intention whatsoever, was heard by a filmmaker who used it in an independent movie. The film gained attention at festivals, and suddenly people were asking about the music. But by then, James had already found what he had been truly seeking. Success, when it came, felt like a natural byproduct rather than a desperate goal. He had learned that the river of creativity flows most powerfully when we stop trying to dam it and redirect it according to our will. I thought I needed to make it happen, James reflects now, his music career thriving in ways he never forced it to. I learned instead that I needed to let it happen through me. Take a moment to reflect. In what area of your life are you trying too hard? What would happen if you approached your creative work, whatever form it takes, as conversation rather than conquest? How might your results change if you focused on serving the process rather than forcing the outcome? The story of Sarah, finding stillness in the storm. Sarah first spoke to me from a minivan parked outside soccer practice, her 3 children's voices creating a symphony of chaos in the background. I can't even find 5 minutes for myself, she said, exhaustion weighing down every word. How am I supposed to transform my life when I can barely find time to shower? As a single mother juggling 2 part-time jobs and 3 children under 12, Sarah represented millions of people who believe spiritual practice requires luxuries they cannot afford: time, silence, and space. I was about to show her that she already possessed the perfect temple for awakening, she just hadn't recognized it yet. Sarah's days began at 5 a.m. with lunch making and ended near midnight with dishes and laundry. In between stretched an obstacle course of school pickups, homework battles, grocery runs, and the 1,000 tiny crises that arise when small humans depend on you for everything. I used to meditate, Sarah told me wistfully. Before kids, I had this perfect morning routine. Now I'm lucky if I can drink coffee while it's still warm. This longing for her before life was Sarah's first prison. I helped her see that her current chaos wasn't an obstacle to spiritual practice, it was the practice itself, if she learned to approach it differently. We began with the simplest possible shift. Instead of trying to find time for mindfulness, Sarah learned to bring mindfulness to the time she already had. Washing dishes became a meditation on warm water and clean plates. Folding laundry became an opportunity to practice presence with soft textures and familiar scents. But that's just chores, Sarah protested. That's not spiritual. I invited her to experiment with seeing every moment as sacred, not because it felt peaceful, but because it was real, immediate, and present. The screaming toddler, the homework tears, the grocery store meltdowns, all of it became Sarah's temple. The transformation began with breathing. I taught Sarah to use her breath as an anchor, especially during the most challenging moments. When her youngest threw a tantrum in the cereal aisle, instead of matching his energy with frustration, Sarah learned to take 3 conscious breaths and respond from her center rather than her stress. This simple practice rippled through her entire family system. Children are exquisitely sensitive to their caregiver's energy state. As Sarah became calmer, her children began reflecting that calm back to her. The household didn't become perfect, but it became more harmonious. Sarah discovered that driving could be meditation. Traffic lights became opportunities for gratitude practice. The school pickup line became a chance to observe thoughts without being consumed by them. Even grocery shopping transformed when Sarah approached it as mindful provision for her family rather than another item on her endless to-do list. The most profound change came in how Sarah related to interruption itself. Previously, every child's request or unexpected crisis had felt like an attack on her already limited time and energy. Through practicing Wu Wei, Sarah learned to flow with interruption rather than resist it. I stopped seeing my children's needs as obstacles to my peace, Sarah explains. I started seeing them as invitations to practice presence in real time. This shift transformed not just Sarah's stress levels, but her relationship with motherhood itself. Instead of feeling like she was surviving until some future moment when life would be easier, Sarah began finding meaning and even joy in the very chaos she had once resented. 9 months into her practice, Sarah's children began commenting on the change. "Mom doesn't yell as much anymore," her middle child observed. Her oldest started asking about the breathing techniques he'd seen his mother use during stressful moments. Sarah had become what I call a stealth practitioner, someone who cultivates wisdom within the demands of regular life rather than despite them. Her minivan had become her monastery, her kitchen counter her altar, her children her greatest teachers in the art of unconditional presence. I thought I needed to escape my life to find peace, Sarah reflects. I learned instead that peace was waiting for me right in the middle of my beautiful, messy, perfect life. Pause and consider, what aspects of your chaotic life might actually be opportunities for practice? How might you transform necessary activities into moments of mindfulness? What would change if you saw interruptions as invitations rather than obstacles? The story of Robert, business as spiritual practice. When Robert's family restaurant chain began failing after 23 years of success, he assumed the solution lay in working harder, cutting costs deeper, and pushing his staff more relentlessly. It was a natural assumption for a man who had built his empire through sheer determination and 16-hour days. But sometimes the medicine that once healed becomes the poison that kills. Robert's restaurants had thrived for decades by serving authentic Italian food with the warmth his immigrant grandmother had brought from Sicily. But as competition increased and profit margins thinned, Robert had gradually transformed from a host sharing family recipes into a general commanding food service soldiers. "I micromanaged everything," Robert admits now. How much cheese went on each plate, how long customers could occupy tables, how many seconds between greeting and order taking. "I thought efficiency was everything. But efficiency without soul is just sophisticated machinery." Robert's restaurants maintained their technical standards while losing their heart. Customers began choosing competitors who somehow felt more welcoming. Staff turnover increased as the joy drained from work that had once felt like extended family gatherings. The crisis deepened when Robert's accountant delivered news no business owner wants to hear. At current trends, they would need to close 3 of their 5 locations within 6 months. Robert's first instinct was to tighten control further, work longer hours, and demand more from everyone. Instead, exhaustion forced a different choice. For the first time in months, Robert arrived at his flagship restaurant not to inspect and direct, but simply to sit in a corner booth and observe. What he saw broke his heart and opened his eyes. His staff moved through their duties like actors performing roles they didn't believe in. Customers ate efficiently and left quickly. The laughter that had once echoed from the kitchen was gone. The restaurant still functioned, but it no longer lived. This moment of recognition led Robert to our conversations about applying Taoist principles to business. Initially skeptical, "I'm not looking for philosophy, I need to save my company," Robert gradually understood that his crisis was spiritual before it was financial. We began with the concept of Te, authentic power that comes from alignment with one's true nature rather than force imposed through will. Robert started by asking himself what had originally made his restaurants special, before efficiency became his obsession. The answer was simple: they had felt like coming home. People didn't just eat his food, they experienced his family's love made tangible through handmade pasta and recipes passed down through generations. Robert's transformation began with a radical experiment. For 1 month, he would manage according to Wu Wei principles instead of control principles. Instead of monitoring every detail, he would create conditions for excellence to emerge naturally. The first change was philosophical. Robert stopped seeing his staff as resources to be maximized and began seeing them as partners in creating experiences. He asked cooks about recipe improvements instead of demanding exact compliance. He invited servers to suggest ways to make customers feel more welcome instead of timing their interactions. This shift from command to collaboration initially felt terrifying to Robert. "I thought if I wasn't controlling everything, everything would fall apart," he recalls. Instead, people started caring about their work in ways I'd never seen. The transformation accelerated when Robert began applying the principle of yin and yang to business operations. He learned to recognize natural rhythms, busy periods that required full energy, and slower times that allowed for rest and reflection. Instead of demanding consistent intensity, he created space for both effort and ease. Robert also embraced the Taoist teaching that emptiness creates possibility. Instead of cramming every square foot with revenue-generating tables, he created spaces for lingering, comfortable seating areas where customers could extend their experience. Counterintuitively, this increased rather than decreased profits, as people stayed longer and ordered more. The most profound change came in Robert's relationship with uncertainty. Previously, every business challenge had been a problem to be conquered through harder work. Now he began seeing challenges as information about what wanted to emerge. When customers requested more vegetarian options, instead of defending his traditional menu, Robert experimented with plant-based versions of classic dishes. Within 6 months, the transformation was measurable. Customer satisfaction scores increased. Staff retention improved dramatically. Most importantly, revenue began climbing as word spread that Robert's restaurants had gotten their magic back. "I learned that business is just another way of serving life," Robert explains now, his chain not only stable but expanding. "When I stopped trying to force outcomes and started creating conditions for good things to happen naturally, everything changed." Take a moment to reflect. How might your work life change if you approach challenges as information rather than problems? What would happen if you managed by creating conditions for excellence rather than demanding compliance? How could you serve your industry's highest potential instead of just maximizing profit? The story of Linda, healing through surrender. Linda's journey to the Tao began in a doctor's office, with a diagnosis that shattered every assumption she held about control, planning, and forcing life to bend to her will. At 51, Linda was a master of optimization, an efficiency consultant who helped corporations streamline their operations. Her own life ran with the precision of a Swiss watch: scheduled meals, timed workouts, planned relaxation, and a 5-year strategic plan updated quarterly. Then came the words that stopped time: "You have rheumatoid arthritis. It's quite advanced." Linda's first response was predictably systematic. She researched every treatment option, interviewed specialists across 3 states, and created detailed protocols for diet, exercise, and medication management. She approached her disease like a corporate problem requiring reorganization. "I was going to beat this thing," Linda tells me now, her voice carrying the memory of that fierce determination. I had spreadsheets tracking symptoms, charts monitoring inflammation markers, and a military-style regimen of supplements and treatments. For 18 months, Linda fought her condition with the same intensive focus that had made her successful in business. Some days were better than others, but the overall trajectory was worsening. Joint pain increased. Fatigue deepened. The harder she fought, the more her body seemed to rebel against her efforts. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning when Linda couldn't open a jar of coffee. This simple task, something she had done thousands of times without thought, had become impossible. She sat in her kitchen and wept not just from pain, but from the recognition that her approach wasn't working. I realized I was at war with my own body, Linda reflects. And in that war, we were both losing. This recognition opened Linda to a completely different approach. In our conversations, we explored what it might mean to make peace with her condition instead of fighting it. This didn't mean giving up on healing, it meant changing her relationship with the healing process itself. Linda began by learning to listen to her body's wisdom instead of overriding it with willpower. On days when pain was high, instead of pushing through her normal routine, she learned to rest without guilt. On days when energy was available, she engaged fully without hoarding strength for tomorrow. This practice of Wu Wei in relation to illness initially felt like defeat to someone accustomed to forcing outcomes through effort. But gradually, Linda discovered that cooperation with her body's needs created more energy than fighting against them ever had. She learned to see symptoms as information rather than enemies. Joint stiffness in the morning became a signal to move gently and warm up slowly. Fatigue became an invitation to rest and restore. Pain became a teacher in the art of presence. She could fight it and suffer doubly, or breathe with it and find pockets of peace even within discomfort. Linda's transformation extended beyond symptom management to her entire relationship with control itself. She had spent decades believing that vigilant management of every variable would guarantee desired outcomes. Illness taught her that life contains forces larger than personal will, and that working with these forces was often more effective than battling them. This philosophical shift rippled through every aspect of Linda's life. At work, she began consulting differently, helping companies find organic solutions that worked with their existing culture rather than imposing external systems. In relationships, she stopped trying to manage other people's choices and began creating space for authentic connection to emerge. Most surprisingly, Linda's health began improving as she stopped fighting it so intensively. Stress hormones decreased as she learned to flow with her condition rather than resist it. Sleep improved as she stopped lying awake strategizing about treatments. The inflammation markers that had steadily worsened during her period of intensive intervention began stabilizing. "I'm not completely cured," Linda explains. "But I'm completely healed of thinking that force is the answer to everything. My body taught me that the deepest healing happens when we stop fighting life and start dancing with it." 3 years after her diagnosis, Linda's symptoms are manageable, her energy is stable, and her relationship with uncertainty has transformed from terror to curiosity. She still takes medications and follows medical protocols, but she does so in cooperation with her body's wisdom rather than despite it. Pause and consider, where in your life are you fighting battles that might be better approached through cooperation? What would change if you listened to your body's signals as information rather than inconvenience? How might your healing, physical, emotional, or spiritual, accelerate if you stopped trying to force it? The story of Michelle and David, dancing with differences. Michelle and David came to couples counseling with the ammunition of 15 years' worth of arguments carefully cataloged and ready for deployment. They had reached that dangerous territory where partners know exactly which buttons to push for maximum damage, and they had been pushing them with increasing frequency. "He never listens," Michelle would begin, followed immediately by David's counterattack. "She never stops talking." They had perfected the art of parallel monologues, each speaking past the other towards some invisible judge who might finally declare them right and their partner wrong. Their conflicts followed predictable patterns. Michelle, an extrovert who processed thoughts out loud, would try to discuss issues by talking through her feelings. David, an introvert who needed space to process internally, would feel overwhelmed and withdraw. Michelle would interpret his withdrawal as rejection and pursue harder. David would feel invaded and defend more strongly. Round and round they went, each response triggering the next in an exhausting dance of mutual triggering. "We love each other," David told me during our first session. "But we're destroying each other." Like many couples, Michelle and David had fallen into the trap of trying to change each other rather than learning to dance with their differences. Michelle wanted David to engage with her emotional intensity. David wanted Michelle to give him space for quiet reflection. Both were trying to force the other to meet needs in ways that violated the other person's nature. I introduced them to the Taoist concept of yin and yang, not as opposing forces, but as complementary energies that create wholeness through their interaction. Michelle's expressive nature and David's reflective nature weren't problems to be solved, but gifts to be honored and integrated. We began with the practice of wu-wei in communication. Instead of trying to win arguments or change each other's style, they learned to flow with their differences. When Michelle felt the urge to pursue David during his withdrawal, she practiced giving him space while sharing her feelings through writing. When David felt overwhelmed by Michelle's emotional expression, he practiced staying present for short periods before requesting breaks to process. This shift from opposition to collaboration required both partners to see conflict differently. Instead of viewing disagreements as battles to be won, they began approaching them as information about what their relationship needed to grow. The breakthrough came during a typical argument about money. Michelle wanted to discuss their budget immediately, feeling anxious about recent expenses. David felt pressured and began his usual retreat. But instead of escalating into their familiar pattern, Michelle paused and said, "I can see you need time to think about this. Could you let me know when you're ready to talk?" David, surprised by this departure from their usual script, was able to respond, "I do need about an hour to look at the numbers. Then I'd actually like to discuss this with you." This simple exchange demonstrated wu-wei in action, Michelle honoring David's processing style while still addressing her need for resolution, David accepting Michelle's concern while maintaining his boundary around timing. Over the following months, Michelle and David learned to see their different styles as resources rather than obstacles. Michelle's ability to express emotions helped David access feelings he might otherwise suppress. David's reflective nature helped Michelle think through issues she might otherwise react to impulsively. They developed rituals that honored both their needs. Weekly relationship check-ins gave Michelle regular opportunities for connection while giving David predictable timing that allowed him to prepare. When conflicts arose, they learned to call timeouts that weren't retreats from engagement but pauses that allowed for better engagement. The transformation went deeper than improved communication skills. Both partners began to understand that their differences weren't flaws to be corrected but expressions of the natural diversity that makes relationships dynamic and growth-promoting. "I stopped trying to make David more like me," Michelle explains. "I started appreciating how his quietness balances my intensity. I stopped seeing Michelle's emotions as attacks," David adds. "I started seeing them as invitations to understand her inner world." 2 years later, Michelle and David still have their different styles. Michelle still processes externally, David still needs internal reflection time. But they now dance with these differences rather than war against them. Their relationship has become a living example of how opposites can create harmony when approached with wu-wei rather than force. Take a moment to reflect. In your relationships, where are you trying to change others rather than dance with your differences? How might your conflicts transform if you saw them as information rather than battles? What complementary gifts might emerge if you stopped trying to make others more like you? The practice of story medicine. As these 7 stories settle into your awareness like seeds finding fertile soil, I invite you to notice what resonates in your own experience. Perhaps you see yourself in Marcus's rigid control, Elena's disconnection from natural rhythms, or Sarah's overwhelm with daily demands. Maybe Linda's battle against illness reflects your own struggles with uncertainty, or Michelle and David's relationship patterns echo dynamics in your own partnerships. This recognition is not meant to create more self-improvement projects, but to offer compassion for the very human tendency to make life harder than it needs to be. Every person in these stories was doing their best with the tools they had available. Transformation came not through self-criticism, but through gentle curiosity about what might work better. The beauty of the Tao is that it meets us wherever we are. Robert's restaurant kitchen, Elena's fire escape garden, Sarah's minivan, Linda's doctor visits, all became temples of awakening when approached with presence and openness. Your transformation temple might be your office desk, your morning commute, your evening family time, or your weekend errands. Notice too that none of these transformations happened overnight. Elena's plants grew slowly. Marcus's flexibility developed gradually. Robert's business culture shifted over months. This organic timing is not failure of commitment, but alignment with natural law. The Tao transforms us at the pace that allows change to integrate deeply rather than superficially. As you prepare to continue this journey, reflect on these questions. Which stories spoke most directly to your current situation? What patterns from these examples do you recognize in your own life? What small shift might you experiment with, inspired by one of these experiences of transformation? The path of the Tao is not about becoming someone different, but about removing the obstacles that prevent your true nature from expressing itself freely. Like water returning to its natural course when debris is cleared from the stream, your authentic self is already perfect, it simply needs space to flow. Practice invitation. Choose one person from these stories whose journey resonates with your current challenges. For the next week, carry their example with you as gentle inspiration. When you encounter situations that typically create struggle, ask yourself, how might Marcus approach this with flexibility instead of force, or how might Sarah find presence within this chaos? Let their wisdom become a bridge to your own. Tomorrow, we will translate these insights into concrete practices, building your personalized 30-day program for embodying the Tao in your unique life circumstances. But tonight, simply rest in the knowing that transformation is not only possible, it is your natural state when obstacles to flowing are gently dissolved. The river knows the way to the sea. Your deeper wisdom knows the way to your fullest expression. Trust the current that is already carrying you home. Chapter 7 30-Day Program with Practice Scripts. As I sit here in the quiet morning light, watching dewdrops gather on bamboo leaves outside my window, I'm reminded of how transformation unfolds in nature, never rushed, always purposeful, following rhythms older than memory. The next 30 days will journey together represent one complete cycle of this natural unfolding, like a moon phase that takes us from darkness through fullness and back to a new beginning. You've traveled far already, dear friend. You've touched the essence of the Tao, felt its gentle current beneath the surface of your daily life. Now comes the sacred work of integration, the art of weaving these timeless principles into the fabric of your ordinary moments until they become as natural as breathing. Think of these 30 days not as a rigid program to complete, but as a gentle river that will carry you deeper into your own authentic nature. Just as a seed contains within itself the entire blueprint of the mighty oak, these next 4 weeks hold the complete pattern of your transformation. Trust the process, even when, especially when, you cannot see the changes happening within you. First 10 days establishing the roots. The foundation of all lasting change begins where you begin each day, in those precious moments between sleep and full waking, when your spirit is still soft and receptive. I invite you to think of your first 10 days as a time of gentle planting, like a gardener preparing soil before the spring planting. On your first morning, before reaching for your phone or letting the day's obligations flood your mind, place your feet on the floor and take 3 conscious breaths. Feel the earth beneath you, solid and supportive. This simple act, feeling your connection to the ground, becomes your anchor in the flowing stream of each day. The Tao is not found in mountaintops or meditation halls alone, it pulses through the floorboards beneath your feet, through the coffee warming in your cup, through the ordinary miracle of your own heartbeat. Create what I call a breathing sanctuary in your living space. This doesn't require a special room or expensive cushions, perhaps just a corner by a window where natural light enters, or a chair that faces your favorite tree. The external space matters less than your internal commitment to return there each morning, like a bird returning to its nest. In this space, spend 10 minutes simply following your natural breath rhythm. Don't try to change it, just observe how your body breathes you, how life moves through you without any effort from your thinking mind. During these first 10 days, practice what I call sacred transitions. Each time you move from one activity to another, from car to office, From work to home, from cooking to eating, pause for 3 breaths. Feel yourself fully arrive in a new space before beginning the next task. These tiny moments of conscious transition accumulate like drops of water that eventually carve canyons through solid rock. Notice how your body holds the stories of your days. As you lie down each evening, place your hands on your heart and simply listen to what your body wants to tell you about the day that's ending. Did your shoulders carry worry like invisible stones? Did your jaw clench against words you couldn't speak? Offer gratitude to your body for carrying you through another day, and breathe softness into any places that feel tight or tired. The first gentle challenge often comes around day 4 or 5, when the initial enthusiasm meets the resistance of old patterns. This is natural, like a river meeting rocks in its path. The water doesn't argue with the stones, it simply finds the way through. If you miss a morning practice, return the next day without judgment. If the breathing feels forced, simply sit in your sanctuary without any agenda except to be present to what is. Consider this reflection: what would change in your life if you truly believed that transformation could happen gently, without forcing or struggling? How might your days unfold differently if you trusted the natural intelligence that governs the turning of seasons and the beating of your heart? Practice this. Each evening, write 3 sentences about what you noticed during the day, not achievements or failures, but simple observations. Perhaps you noticed how the light changed between morning and afternoon, or how your breathing shifted when you received unexpected news, or how your body felt different after taking those conscious transition breaths. This is training your awareness to recognize the subtle movements of the Tao through your ordinary experience. Days 11 to 20, cultivating the flow. By the time you reach the second phase of our journey together, something subtle but significant has begun to shift. You've started to remember what it feels like to inhabit your own life more fully, to be present in the stream of each moment rather than constantly leaning forward into an imagined future or backward into a remembered past. These next 10 days invite you deeper into the art of Wu Wei, that effortless action that flows from alignment rather than forcing. Begin to notice the difference between productive activity and busyness, between focused attention and scattered mental energy. Like water finding its way down a mountainside, effective action follows the natural contours of each situation. In your work life, experiment with what I call responsive presence. Instead of approaching each task with a predetermined agenda of how it should unfold, begin with a moment of quiet receptivity. Ask yourself, what wants to emerge here? What is this situation asking of me? This doesn't mean becoming passive or indecisive, but rather learning to sense the natural direction of energy within each circumstance and aligning your actions accordingly. Pay special attention to your interactions with others during this phase. Practice the art of conscious yielding, not out of weakness, but from the deep strength that comes from not needing to be right or in control. When someone speaks to you, listen not just to their words but to the quality of energy they're carrying. Often what people need most is not advice or solutions, but simply to be truly witnessed in their experience. Begin to work with what I call decision-making from stillness. Before making any significant choice, from what to eat for lunch to how to respond to a difficult email, pause and drop your attention from your thinking mind down into the wisdom center of your body. Notice what feels expansive versus what feels contracting. The Tao speaks through the subtle language of your entire being, not just through the analytical chatter of the brain. During this second phase, introduce gentle movement practices that honor your body's natural intelligence. This might be as simple as stretching like a cat when you wake up, walking more slowly and feeling each step, or taking stairs 2 at a time when energy feels buoyant. The goal is not fitness but intimacy, developing a conversation with your body about what it needs to feel vitally alive. Practice the art of productive rest. In our culture, rest is often seen as the absence of activity, but true rest is the presence of deep receptivity. Spend time each day doing absolutely nothing with complete attention, sitting by a window watching clouds, lying on the ground feeling the earth's support, or simply standing in your kitchen listening to the sounds of your home. These moments of non-doing are not empty, they're full of the regenerative power that makes all action possible. Work with what I call emotional weather patterns. Just as you don't take the rain personally when it falls, begin to observe your emotional states with the same kind of objective curiosity. Notice how feelings arise, peak, and naturally dissolve when met with awareness rather than resistance. Anger is like a summer thunderstorm, intense but brief when allowed to move through. Sadness is like winter rain, cleansing and necessary for the spring growth that follows. Reflect on this. How might your relationships change if you stopped trying to fix or change the people you love and instead offered them the gift of your undivided presence? What would become possible in your work if you approached each challenge as a dance partner rather than an enemy to defeat? Practice this. Choose one routine daily activity, perhaps washing dishes, commuting to work, or preparing meals, and transform it into a moving meditation. Bring complete attention to the sensory experience, the temperature of water on your hands, the rhythm of windshield wipers, the colors and textures of food as you prepare it. Let this ordinary activity become a doorway into extraordinary presence. Days 21 to 30, integrating the wisdom. As we enter the final phase of this 30-day cycle, you may notice that the practices that once required conscious effort have begun to feel more natural, like paths worn smooth by gentle, consistent footsteps. This is the miracle of integration, when external practice becomes internal transformation, when conscious choice evolves into authentic expression. These last 10 days focus on what I call seamless living, the art of carrying the awareness you've cultivated in quiet moments into the full complexity of your engaged life. You're learning to find the eye of stillness that exists at the center of any storm, the place of unshakable peace that remains constant regardless of external circumstances. Begin working with more challenging situations as opportunities for deeper practice. When faced with stress, conflict, or unexpected change, resist the habitual urge to contract or fight. Instead, breathe into the discomfort and look for the hidden invitation within the challenge. Every difficult situation is asking you to access a deeper level of your authentic strength, to discover resources within yourself that you didn't know existed. Practice what I call transparent communication. This means speaking from the truth of your present moment experience rather than from the stories your mind creates about what's happening. Instead of saying "you always," try "right now I'm feeling." Instead of "this situation is impossible," try "I'm noticing resistance to this situation." This shift from interpretation to direct experience transforms the quality of all your relationships. Deepen your relationship with uncertainty as a creative force rather than a source of anxiety. The Tao flows through constant change, and learning to surf the waves of impermanence rather than fighting against them becomes a source of tremendous freedom. Practice saying "I don't know" with curiosity rather than fear, treating each unknown as an adventure waiting to unfold. Introduce practices that connect you with the larger rhythms of life beyond your personal concerns. Spend time observing the sky, watching how light changes throughout the day, noticing the phase of the moon and how it affects the quality of your energy. These practices remind you that you're part of something much larger and more mysterious than your individual story. Work with what I call spontaneous generosity. Look for opportunities to offer kindness, attention, or service without any agenda except the joy of giving. This might be as simple as really listening when someone needs to be heard, offering genuine appreciation for someone's efforts, or helping in small practical ways. Generosity is the natural expression of a heart that has learned to trust the abundance of the Tao. During these final 10 days, begin to sense how your personal transformation is rippling outward into all your relationships and circumstances. You don't need to evangelize or try to change others. Your own increasing authenticity and presence becomes an invitation for others to access their own deeper nature. Reflect deeply on this question: who are you becoming through this practice, and how does this new version of yourself want to show up in the world? What gifts are emerging through you that the world is waiting to receive? Practice this final integration exercise. Each evening, review your day and identify moments when you acted from alignment versus moments when you acted from old patterns of forcing or resistance. Celebrate the aligned moments without judgment about the others. Then, imagine tomorrow unfolding with even more opportunities to express your authentic nature. See yourself moving through the coming day with grace, responding to whatever arises from a place of centered presence. Weekly rituals of reflection. Every 7 days, create sacred time for deeper reflection on the journey you're taking. This isn't about measuring progress or judging performance, but about honoring the process of transformation and maintaining conscious connection with your intention. Choose the same day each week, perhaps Sunday morning when the world feels quieter, and spend an hour in gentle review. Read through anything you've written during the week, notice patterns in your observations, and feel into the subtle shifts happening in your awareness and responses. Ask yourself these questions without needing to find immediate answers. Where am I pushing too hard, and where might I soften? What am I avoiding, and how can I meet it with compassion? What wants to emerge through me, and how can I create space for its natural unfolding? This weekly practice becomes a compass, helping you navigate with increasing sensitivity to the subtle guidance that flows through your direct experience of living. As these 30 days draw to a close, remember that what you're cultivating is not a temporary state but a way of being that will continue to deepen and mature throughout your lifetime. You're not trying to achieve some final destination of enlightenment, but learning to find the sacred in the midst of the ordinary, the eternal in the heart of each passing moment. The real transformation happens not in dramatic peak experiences but in the accumulated weight of thousands of small choices to remain present, to respond rather than react, to trust the intelligence that flows through all life. You are becoming who you have always been beneath the layers of conditioning and fear, natural, spontaneous, authentically yourself. Trust this process, dear friend. The Tao that flows through the rivers and seasons is the same intelligence that's guiding your transformation. Let it carry you gently home to yourself. Chapter 8: Integration, Commitment, and Next Steps. As I sit here in the gentle twilight of our journey together, I feel the profound silence that follows a deep conversation between old friends. These 90 days we've shared are like a single breath in the eternal rhythm of the Tao, complete in themselves, yet part of something infinitely larger. The you who began reading these words and the you who sits here now are not the same person, though the change may feel as subtle as the way morning light gradually transforms darkness into day. Like the bamboo that grows invisibly for years before shooting skyward in mere weeks, your transformation has been working in depths you may not fully comprehend. The practices we've shared, the moments of stillness you've cultivated, the times you chose flow over force, these have been seeds planted in the fertile soil of your being. Some have already sprouted into visible changes in your life. Others remain dormant, waiting for the perfect conditions to emerge in ways that will surprise and delight you. I have watched countless souls walk this path of return to their natural state, and I can tell you with certainty, you are not who you were when we began. The mirror of your days now reflects someone more aligned with the subtle current that moves all things. Your breath carries more peace. Your steps fall more naturally. Your words arise from a deeper well of knowing. Perhaps you notice that conflicts that once consumed you now feel like passing weather. Maybe you find yourself pausing before reacting, creating space for wisdom to enter where once only impulse lived. You might discover that solutions to old problems appear effortlessly, as if the universe has been waiting for you to stop forcing and start allowing. These are not accidents, they are the natural fruits of living in harmony with the Tao. Yet I know you may also feel a tender concern: how do I keep this alive? How do I maintain this connection when the demands of daily life press in from all sides? This worry itself is like a small cloud passing through the vast sky of your awareness, natural, temporary, and not to be fought against. The secret I want to share with you is this: the Tao you have touched is not something you need to maintain. It is something you need to remember to stop forgetting. It is not a possession that can be lost, but your very nature temporarily obscured by the habits of the mind. The practices we've explored together are not exercises to build something new, but ways of removing what has always blocked what is already perfect within you. Think of a mountain stream that becomes temporarily dammed by fallen branches and debris. The water doesn't need to learn how to flow, it needs only for the obstacles to be cleared. Your essential nature is like this stream, always moving toward harmony, always seeking the most natural path. The meditation, the mindful breathing, the moments of Wu Wei, these are simply ways of clearing the debris that accumulates in the course of living. As you move forward, some days you will remember to live from this place of natural flow. Other days, you will forget, caught up in the old patterns of pushing and striving. This forgetting is not failure, it is part of the dance. Even the most accomplished sage experiences moments of disconnection from the Tao. The difference lies not in never forgetting, but in how quickly and gently they return. When you notice yourself gripping too tightly to outcomes, trying to force life into shapes it doesn't want to take, or feeling that familiar tension of swimming upstream, pause. Take 3 conscious breaths. Feel your feet on the earth. Remember that this very moment of recognition is the Tao working through you, calling you home to yourself. Create small anchors throughout your day that remind you of your true nature. Perhaps it's the sensation of warm water on your hands as you wash dishes, transformed from chore to meditation. Maybe it's the pause between your car door closing and your front door opening, a sacred transition where you shed the day and return to presence. These tiny rituals become powerful because they are chosen consciously, woven into the fabric of ordinary life. I encourage you to trust the intelligence of your own unfolding. Your intuition, sharpened by these months of practice, knows when you need more stillness and when you need more engagement, when to bend and when to stand firm, when to speak and when to remain silent. This inner knowing is more reliable than any external authority, including the words on these pages. As seasons change in the natural world, so too will the seasons of your spiritual cultivation require different approaches. There will be times when you hunger for deeper solitude and contemplation, periods when you might explore longer meditation retreats or immerse yourself in classical Taoist texts like the Tao Te Ching or the writings of Zhuangzi. There will be other seasons when your practice looks more like engaged action in the world, serving others, and allowing your inner harmony to manifest as outer compassion. Both are equally valid expressions of the Tao. The hermit on the mountain and the teacher in the marketplace are drinking from the same source, expressing the same fundamental truth through different forms. Your path will be uniquely yours, shaped by your circumstances, temperament, and the particular gifts you're here to offer the world. Remember that your transformation naturally ripples outward, touching everyone you encounter in ways both visible and invisible. Your family members may notice that you're more present during conversations, less reactive during stressful moments. Colleagues might find themselves feeling calmer after interacting with you, though they can't quite explain why. Children and animals, with their natural sensitivity, will often be drawn to the peace that now emanates more consistently from your being. This is how the Tao spreads in the world, not through preaching or convincing, but through authentic embodiment. You become a living reminder to others of their own deepest nature. Simply by being who you truly are, you give permission for others to do the same. The path ahead is not about perfection but about returning, again and again, to your center. It's about choosing love over fear, flow over force, presence over distraction, not once and for all, but moment by moment, day by day, season by season. Each return strengthens the neural pathways of harmony, making it easier to find your way back each time. Create a simple commitment to yourself, not a rigid vow that becomes another burden, but a gentle intention that honors the journey you've begun. Perhaps it's dedicating the first 5 minutes of each morning to conscious breathing, or taking a brief walk in nature once a week, or simply pausing to feel gratitude before meals. Let this commitment be as natural and sustainable as the rhythm of your own heartbeat. As we come to the close of our time together, I want to leave you with this truth: you have everything you need already within you. The Tao that created the stars and moves the tides flows through your veins. The wisdom that turns seeds into flowers and caterpillars into butterflies lives in your cells. You are not separate from the intelligence that orchestrates the dance of the cosmos. You are its conscious expression, capable of choice and awareness and profound love. The journey of transformation never truly ends because life itself is transformation, constant and eternal. Each day offers new opportunities to practice presence, to choose harmony over conflict, to trust the unfolding rather than demanding to control it. You have tasted this way of being, and that taste can never be completely forgotten. Take a moment now to feel into your body, your breath, your heart. Notice how you feel different from when we began, perhaps calmer, more centered, more trusting of life's process. This feeling is your compass for the journey ahead. Whenever you lose your way, you can return to this felt sense of alignment and let it guide you back home to yourself. Moment of reflection: what aspect of your transformation over these 90 days feels most significant to you? How has your relationship with challenge and difficulty shifted? What would you most want to remember about this journey during times when you forget your connection to the Tao? Practice. Create a simple daily ritual that will serve as your anchor in the months ahead. Choose something you can do consistently, whether it's 3 conscious breaths upon waking, a moment of gratitude before meals, or a brief pause to feel your connection to the earth. Commit to this practice not as obligation but as a gift you give yourself each day, a reminder of who you truly are beneath all the stories and roles and identities. Let this ritual be your bridge between the transformation you've experienced and the continued unfolding that awaits you. The Tao that brought us together for this journey continues to flow through your life, creating new possibilities with each moment. Trust it. Follow it. And remember, you are never walking alone.